We're going in. We're live, y'all. This crazy group of people. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Why Don't We See the Screen?
Oh boy, here we go.
OBS.
This is going to go smoothly.
Oh no, I see it. It's there. Okay, it was just a weird transition in Streamlabs OBS. Yeah, we're
Okay,
good.
hi.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Thorns, our finale talk show for A Crusade of Thorns, a vampire noir tale set in LA 1943, spanning 2 channels, 36 episodes, 14 players, 4 STs, and encroaching on 40,000 words of text. We are now proud to close this fabulous story with these wonderful human beings right here. We have asked people for questions, and they have given us questions, and so we have many questions. We are also taking questions from chat this evening, so it's super exciting. Hi, I'm Sean. I am the, I guess technically the head storyteller, but really that guy right there on here did most of the like coordination of storytelling. That one, Death by Mage, because I was busy with the Camarilla story, most of the time. So, what else?
Oh, weird. I have a different layout of. Oh my god, that's so weird.
Yeah, it's going to be different in your Zoom than it will be in
he was
my
pointing
Zoom.
to me and like Death by Mage. Yeah, it's like that way.
Yeah, I was sitting like back and forth. I'm like, I should correct him. It was not me. It was DBM.
It's definitely DBM right there on the screen. Yeah. So I'm gonna make it real quick. We were doing this whole thing to go in part for Rainbow Railroad, which is an amazing charity that helps folks in LGBT communities in crisis, in crappy parts of the world, get out of those places and get to places where it's marginally less crappy for them. I wish I could say it was perfect everywhere, but it's not. But at least it's better, and we want to give them that help and get them where they in better places in the world, and that's what Rainbow Railroad does. So if you're interested in joining us in that charity drive, tonight's the last night. We're going to have it up on the Twitch here, and so you should click on the link and donate. We've got merch, we've got amazing sponsors, we've got Patreon, we've got all that stuff, but we're not here to talk about any of that tonight. We'll just put it in chat or something. You all, because there's so many of us, we're just going to go around and everyone say who you are, who you played, and we'll start with Jack, because he's right there. Jack.
Hey everybody, I'm Capjack, or Capjack also on Twitter, and I played Ivan, the Zemitsi monster, really.
Yeah, it was quite the monster. M!
I didn't realize it was going to be me so quickly. Hi, I'm
Sing
M.
your toes.
I played Alexander the Toreador Chronicler from the Camarilla game.
Zed.
Hi, I'm Zed. I played, well, lots of things. I'm the storyteller for the Sabat game. The Wood!
Yeah.
The wood.
And so I primarily, the most consistently, I got to play Sebastian, now Sinisi upgraded but former ghoul to the group. But otherwise, I played whatever was needed.
Excellent. Nerdy Teddy.
Hi, I'm Nerdy Titty, and I played Celine the Toreador club owner.
Nice.
Manager.
Portia.
Hi, I'm Portia. I played Gianna, the La Sombra Dectus, on the Sabat stream.
Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin by Sonic Kevin on Twitter. I played Calvin the Ventru Financier and Camarilla.
Italicized? You know.
The former camera.
Politician of fortune. Politician of fortune. Yeah.
LA stalwart.
Yes. Jimmy.
Hello, I am Jumi of Diamonds, or Amanda, and I played in the Sabat game. I played Roxy the Nosferatu.
Shogun.
I'm Shogun. I played as Isaac, formerly alive.
The bound and sacrificed.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Quinn.
Hi, I'm Quinn. I was the Anarch storyteller all over on Soulbear RPG, and on Twitter I'm at Solobon and at Soulbear RPG, and Soulbear RPG on Twitch.
Celts.
So I'm also a Sean. I go by Celts on the internet, I am actually Eli, and then I play Celts 6 other days of the week. I was the Bruja Anarch. Bruhaha.
Put the ha and
Bruhaha. On Twitch, I go by Diegeist.
Nice. And last but not least, for now, Monk.
Hey guys, Paul, otherwise known as Monk, Psychotic Monk. You can find me on Twitter at Monk2774. I play the Nosferatu meat shield Dante.
Oh.
Still too soon?
I still got Dust in the Winds playing through my head.
Oh,
So, all right, this is going to be a Q&A session. Folks in chat should feel free to ask questions as we go along. It's all going to be moderated by the last person I'm going to ask to introduce themselves because he's going to take it over from there. Death by Mage.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Jackie, also known as Death by Mage on the Twitters, and I was your global ST for helping consolidate all of this storytelling into something cohesive.
And the resident troublemaker in every chat.
Yes, I was definitely the resident troublemaker in all the chats, and I was well known for my portrayal of a very particular Kuei-jin in LA known as Ming Zhao. I have never seen so many veiled threats for an NPC in a chat.
Look, Sabat got along just fine.
We were good.
I saw that one time you were all plotting.
Yeah, eventually.
Constant.
It was constant. It was not just one time.
Yeah.
If Ming fucks us over, how are we gonna get her back?
I know. So tonight we're going to be we got questions submitted from both players and also from the community. So we were going to be asking some questions to either directed to the players or to a particular player or even to the STs. Also, if you want to ask any questions in the chat, please feel free to do so. I'm in the chat, so you can actually just tag me and so I can see them. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's start with this question. This one is going to be directed at, let's see, where is it? Okay, so this one is for the STs, not including myself. What moment from each stream will you remember because a character decision surprised you? Okay, go ahead, Strock.
When Celine frenzied on Don Sebastian and then jumped out a window. That was not expected. That was
baller shit.
Yeah, that was fucking hardcore. Like, mad props for my character might die, and your character very well could have died. Thank God you're a vampire, and you take less damage from everything. But yeah, wow, that was mine. Yeah, Celine jumping out a window after frenzying on Don Sebastian.
That was
valid.
I think from the Sabat, it was most things Roxy did. So for example, Diablerizing, what's her name? The Nosferatu lady.
Regina
Wynn. Diablerizing Regina Wynn while poor Isaac was lying there snake behind her. And then later, destroying a fucking helicopter, on her own.
I think the best is the couple that were sleeping.
And game was that game 1?
That was game 1.
That was game 1.
So good.
First time she went to go feed.
Yeah, she frenzied or she beast or critical, whatever. She messy critical. That's the word. She messy critical to stealth check, and so we figured out a way for it to make sense roleplay wise.
That was the
and
first
so she ended up slow walking away from an exploding house of just a couple of random people living out in the country.
She slammed the door though, so that the wife would wake up and notice that her husband was dead before then dying in a fire.
Yes,
but you know what the best part of that whole thing was? In my opinion, when she was walking away, she bent over, picked up the house mat,
welcome mat,
and took it away.
Oh,
that was so good.
I think it's so surprising because I'm such a quiet person, but I'm always thinking, and I always have like something going up there.
No, I really
awesome.
really enjoy the hell out of it. It was pretty gangster on a number of occasions. So.
And then she took it back there, dropped it, and says, "There's my points."
Yep.
Yes.
God, that was good.
It was classy.
That was a great way to start the whole chronicle.
Mine was having to throw my entire second arc out the window 5 minutes before game time. I was like, well, fuck me. I was like, literally, as I woke up, it dropped me like, my bad, boo. Or no, Zed was like, yeah, sorry, dude. And I was like, no, it's all good. I think I may have something. And I was so unsure until literally the I was like, all right, yeah, this is what's happening. And I was like, they went to this club. This is how it's going to go down. And I was like, all right, there we go. And that led through that entire mad bombing Zemitsi, that bombs at midnight thing.
And that was
for a bit of a...
We were freaking out because we were like, wait a minute. We killed her.
Yeah.
No. We did, right? We did kill her, right? So like
all the storytellers like Zed, Death, and Throck were like, "What the fuck, man?" And I was like, "Look, man, dude." I was like, "Yeah, no, she's dead. This is what's happening." And they were cool. We're like, "Oh, that's good."
for a little bit of behind the scenes, like, so we would have to coordinate like what everyone was doing, and so for given episodes, I would hit up Sean and I'd be like, okay, who in the cam's got a green light this week? Like who's free, who's available that isn't gonna go? And so he was like, yeah, Sable. I was like, okay, Sable.
Radiant, but I didn't think you'd actually kill her. I'm like, there's no way. Like, she got like celerity 5, and like, nope, just one stake straight through the crit into the fucking ult.
Yeah, because it was like a 16 success.
Yes. Yeah. We played Exalted for like a short moment that game.
Nice.
I was gonna say, didn't we rewrite the rules a little after that? So
Yup.
Yes.
That was what it was like, and we're gonna dial back vicissitude a little bit.
It's like, oh, this gave you 25 dice. I think there's a problem here.
Just a little one.
But yeah, we got them that time. That was crazy.
Yeah, I'd had to give Don Sebastian the last episode celerity 5. I had to bump it up because Chen and Marion took a nearing eye, and so I'm like, yeah, he needs some defense against this. This is ridiculous.
I didn't expect to roll. I didn't expect to roll the. I didn't expect, first of all, for Chen to roll that 9 success crit, and then followed by Marion rolling a 6 success crit. And I just went, well, this is the start of a great, interesting combat. I was like, are we playing Sabat? Is this a Sabat game?
V5 for what it's worth is very clearly, unless you have fortitude, in which case it changes the way the game works. But the combat system is very heavily stacked in favor of the attacker.
Yeah. As we have learned.
And fortitude is just needed. You have to have fortitude.
Yeah,
because it changes from I took 4 ag and 4 superficial to I'm fine. No,
I'm fine. Superficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay. All right. So I have a question.
No, that question is also to you.
Oh, to me?
By the way, yes.
Fine.
I question all the STs.
Fine. Okay. I guess for me, I really have to still give it to my favorite one from each of the games. I will say first the Sabat, Roxy with that very first episode just going, oh look, the couple, oh look, the messy critical, and then oh look, it's on fire. I love everything about this now. And then for the Anarch game, I think my favorite, the one that surprised me the most probably would have to be the moment when Oh, actually, I know exactly what it was. It was when everyone was trying to do the investigation in that warehouse the very first time, and they were being chased by Section 32. That was also a favorite moment. And I think for the Camarilla, there's so many good ones. I have to give it actually to that wonderful moment with Calvin deciding to take on 2 Section 32 agents and telling M and Celine to book it.
He's a born fighter, except he's not.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, okay.
Well, the beast wants what the beast
with
wants.
his words.
Just hurts all the agents with his words.
Just make them. No, I didn't have dementation. I couldn't.
Can I have one for the Camarilla game? And that's the Unexpected Venture Malkavian romance novel.
Oh, yeah, that was so cute. Yeah.
I think everyone likes it because I hate it.
I took a shower.
I hate it too. I hate it so much.
Hashtag Daddy Calvin.
No. Oh man. Okay, so why don't we move into some questions for the players? This one is an anonymous question, direct, and we'll start with let's do Eli. So this is a question for Eli. Eli, would Eli ever abandon the morals of the Anarchs to become a vigilante?
I think he was kind of there at the beginning. If anything, I think that's kind of in reverse with Eli. I think he kind of had vigilante tendencies to begin with. In fact, part of my Eli's backstory was that he was doing that already before he hooked up in the coterie.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, he's very vigilante-esque. If anything, he was kind of like being taught a different way through the game. And I think by the end of it, he kind of was probably still a little bit on the fence some, but for the most part was happy with the outcome and kind of saw more of a better way to go about things. But yeah, I think he was that to begin with. That's why he got into so much trouble, really.
He got in trouble once. Let's not say trouble. A whole lot of trouble.
But that one time,
That was some trouble.
that one time, he took more damage than Celine's fall, a combined crit from Jackie and Marion shot to Don Sebastian. So that was all that for sure.
That was a lot of tens from Smiling Jack.
Yeah.
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 I think the most insane critical was Eddie's with the ungodly amounts of tens against Radiant. There was so many tens.
Well, the fun thing about the system is, and like I said before, I'm new to it. So when you see a roll come up and it's zeros, like, you know, my first thing was like, oh, cool, fuck, God, dodge a bullet on that one, and they're like, wait a minute, what? That's there's a 10. God damn. And they count double and like, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Zed, that was the worst pun.
That's disgusting.
Oh.
I hardly approve of that.
Which I think
hardly approve of that.
Really good point.
Yeah, I saw Maddie's question. So so I'll ask this so this question is coming from So Maddie Games on the Twitch chat. For those who have got that deal with pride there. You can find those on So Nerdware, by the way.
The nerds wear.
Yes. And if you use the code welcome, you get 10% off on your purchase. So the question from So Maddie Games is, for those who have played Vampire the Masquerade in some iteration or other, what do you like and dislike about V5 in comparison? And for those new to the game entirely, how did they find the system? So we'll break this in half.
I would like to go last.
I know you have a lot of words to say, Matt, so we will save you for last.
Opinions.
Yeah, I know he has opinions. I've heard some of them.
And I can go first if you don't mind, because real quick, the first time I was introduced to it was in a game with Maddie as a one-shot, and I played opposite of Quinn and Throck and one other player, and yet we never got out of the room.
Oh
And by the time it was over with, my Nosferatu was Primogen.
It's a fucking Camarilla for you.
But it was a blast watching everything that goes between those.
Okay. Anybody else want to answer this? Go ahead, Throck.
Okay, so let me start with, I think all storyteller system games do one thing extremely well, and that is empower the players and the STs to tell an interesting story. Right, I think they do. It's built into this system. And one of my, Cordiero in chat loves the hunger system, and I love and hate the hunger system. I think the hunger system works really well for specific things. But I also think there are times when, like, just given the lore of Vampire, right, it would be more inappropriate or more weird to have the beast be rousing at that moment just randomly. And so I think to me, V5 is a work in progress. There's some really good stuff in there. I like that it's easier to get killed. I think it adds a bigger sense of danger to the game. I like, but I have a problem with Fortitude being the only real answer to that. And so I think that's a weird balance. I like the ability to confer physical disciplines on other characters through the draft system. I just wish it wasn't the only level 4 discipline or level 3 discipline, whichever it was, so you could choose between them, right? So I think I like the resonance system, but I feel like you have to be very mindful to use it. It's actually there's a question about Radiant in there somewhere, and I can tell you all about resonance when we get to Radiant. Because she is an experiment, or they are an experiment in resonance. But I think that it is a work in progress. I think there are some very good pieces to it, and I think there are some pieces like the hunger system and thinking more about the disciplines that could use tweaking. And they need to do something about the Sabbat, because right now it's not built for Sabbat. And Zed will get more into that, but they need to do something about the Sabbat.
Portia.
Some of my take. So I learned Vampire as a LARP. So I learned it live action. You know, you don't roll dice. You throw chops. You throw rock paper scissors for everything. Hi.
Welcome, the Connery.
You've come in on an interesting question.
So many.
And there's another one still incoming, so
we probably still have a few more coming in. So, but welcome, Connery. This is Connery. Why don't you introduce your character very quickly? Who you played on the game?
Yeah, I played the Anarch Gangrel Redcap. Was a little bit of a troublemaker.
No,
you were.
Go ahead, Portia, and finish your answer, and then I'll readdress the question again.
So yeah, I learned it in the LARP system, and so transitioning to dice was weird, but at the same time, like, it made sense with the combination of successes and things. My comment with going along with Rock is like these bestial failures being in the most or messy criticals or things being in places where they literally don't make sense. Social situations,
all those bestial perception checks.
Like what?
I remember Elm's like 3 of them.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. That was the most frustrating thing I think for me is like normally it's either you did it, you kind of did it but poorly, or you just didn't.
Right.
And then suddenly throwing this, oh, you do it in a bestial way. It's like, but how?
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I appreciated the system. I just was disappointed that they only took humanity into account, and we had to finagle so many different things to account for what if you're not on humanity? How does this work? So that was frustrating to me.
So before I
like
get to
add as the newbie real quick to VTM, I liked V5 because it threw the lore away. It's because it condensed it down into one book, and instead of reading all of this plus some extra on top of it, you're, as a newcomer coming in, you're never going to be able to understand it. And don't get me wrong, I love looking into the lore. I'm getting my history degree, but I also don't have time to do all of that. So to just give it conducively, like, this is pretty much everything you need to know. Here's what kind of happened beforehand, and here's the fandom page for a little conducive breakdown of what happened during this time period, that was useful to me. And also, from the little I played from V20, it's nice that celerity kind of got nerfed. Because there was a moment in our V20 game where we had this sweeper who came in, and it went back and forth, 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 and the initiative until it was like 8-10 minutes have passed, and it's like, oh, it's our turn now? Okay, cool. And so what I think he gets right is at least the initiative and the celerity nerf. And also, as the newcomer coming in, kind of throwing that lore away and just being like, here's what you need to know. That was a nice change in pace, and it's a nice ease into the lore. And I mean, shit, it got me to start reading fucking Beckett's Jihad Diary, and to finally finish the Bloodlines games, and to buy this on Amazon and read through Theo Bell's adventures and antics. So, I mean, I kind of like it more than D&D.
Right? Can I add one thing to what Quinn said? Because I think he's right. I think for a new player, one of the things the game does well is introduce them to the basics of the storyteller system in a way that doesn't hold on to all the shit that happened in the past and doesn't require you to know 25 years of vampire history, right? Like, that is an unfair expectation for a new player, and it also puts a good premium on narrative play. There are some real trade-offs for that, like mechanically for my brain, but I think Quinn is 100% correct. This is a great place to start for new players.
Mm-hmm. And then and on top of what Quinn said about the comparison to D&D, I have only played D&D my entire life. Playing into this here opened my eyes up to so much that I've actually started dropping money left and right to pick up as many books as I can.
Trust me, he's been hitting up my DM constantly. Garden question. I got this. I got you.
So, as you notice, I dropped the question. I wait until you have time, and I hit you with it.
I put the red carpet out on that. I'll answer any question about that stuff. Which I have another one now. God damn it. All right. I have something to do while I wait for my turn.
So before we get to getting some more feedback, the question, Conry, that was asked for the chat was
I'm so Maddie.
It's from So Maddie Games. For those who've played VTM in some version or another, what did you like and dislike about V5? And for new players coming in, how did they find the system?
Oh, okay. I thought you were asking me directly.
I mean, it's for everyone for the chat.
It looks like Jimmy did have something to say.
Yeah, Jimmy,
go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you. I definitely agree with Quinn, where it's very beginner friendly. It is very much like reading it, I feel like I get it, but at the same time, now that I'm reading more into the lore and stuff, I feel a little confused. Like today, just alone, I learned about the beckoning. And I feel like it's not in the book at all. Is it in the book?
It's a little in the book.
Just very subtly talked about.
Yeah.
So it's very beginner friendly in the mechanics, but I feel like I feel like they're doing the same thing that they did with V20, where there's going to be more and more and more books with more and more and more lore and more mechanics. So it's nice, but I feel like it's repeating.
I just have to say, I found it kind of hard to read the book. The layout was not my.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Don't start it. Don't.
I'm good.
I know Capjack and M had one, so I'll go with Capjack, and then M, you're next. Okay.
So, to give my background on Vampire, I've been playing it for kind of ever. It's the very first system I ever played. It's the only system I've ever run, and so this was an entire breath of fresh air coming into V5 after having played all the different iterations of Vampire forever. But I still want to play a game of V5 at some point, because the way that the Sabbat game worked is most of it was home. So I feel like personally that I have played half of V5 right now. And the parts that I played, I liked and disliked. So I really, before knowing what I like and dislike about it, I want to play a Camarilla game just so I can get that real idea of it. But yeah, just there are some things that definitely made sense. The very, very condensed lore was confusing, especially for a Sabat heavy person, and all the stuff around that. But I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the system overall yet, because again, we didn't use half of it, so
and
we'll see.
Parts of it we used from the original book, like the Diablerie rules, we
completely changed those.
I had to help rewrite and simplify it.
Yeah, because it was such a nightmare to try to. We tried to use it the first time when we got Radiant.
Mm-hmm.
We got them. We tried using the rules as written, and it just made no sense. It's like it's written, so it is the hardest, absolutely most impossible thing to have done.
Which, if that, well, I'm going last.
Yeah, if it's a camera.
Okay, and Connery, you have one next, right?
Oh,
you have anything?
I'm patient. I'm cool.
Okay, M. Is there anything else, Captain?
Shogun has something to say as well. I've been seeing his hand up. I'll let Shogun go first because you've had your hand up for so long.
I liked it. I enjoyed playing it. I think I've said multiple times that like I find D&D to be good, but it's not the best. And I like this as it's a storytelling system as opposed to a gaming system. It is a softer system. I liked that. But a lot of the powers were written as if they were for a hard system instead of a soft system, where they were very specific and told you exactly what this thing is to do, which made very little sense. Like, I don't know, like Soaring Leap, where it gives you the strength to do a exceedingly impossible feat that can only be used, that strength can only be used in a very, very, very specific way. Like, Soaring Leap means you have the strength in your legs to launch yourself stories into the sky, but you can't like kick any harder or anything. Like it's just, like a lot of stuff like that was very, very specific that you had to line your powers up in a very, very specific way.
Shogun, I actually have a point for that specifically to what you're talking about. Even Jason Carl on LA by Night let what's his name, Nosferatu.
I know the player.
Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper. Yeah,
he let Jasper use that Soaring Leap kick thing in a way that is defined outside of the book, because even Jason Carl was like, yeah, if you jump kicked somebody, you would get a bonus, so add that to your die pool.
Fun fact, that's why I did that, is because of LA by Night. That's why I started using that move like that against other people.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought it was a very, very important, addendum to what the point you were making.
Well, along those same lines happened in the finale of your game, Connery, where I can't remember who used it, but they used their blink as like a boost to their attack, right?
I did allow blink to add a little bit of velocity damage, so to speak.
Because that's the same thing, I mean, if you're going to launch yourself in a way to where you can't be seen by the naked eye and you hit something, that's that whole force against an unmovable object or whatever.
It's also physics.
I didn't mean to cut off what you were going for, Shogun. I just wanted to add to your point with an actual here's the guy that was a publisher of the game being like. No,
I like that, and I wish that the powers had been written in more of a purposefully vague way. They were super specific in a system that is soft and needs vagueness so that it can be interpreted in every scene. But instead, it's a lot of it can do this and nothing else for a system which I feel should be very soft and open.
Thank you.
That's how the powers used to be written, was that they were really vague.
I'm looking at V20 now, and I'm like, this stuff seems to be a lot more purposely ambiguous, so you can fit it to any situation.
So the thing is that it's always ST discretion, and that's the big thing about Vampire. I feel like is one of the beauties of the system, is that it used to be written very vague, so that really the ST got to decide whether or not that thing made sense to do. So I agree with that. That makes sense. But
Okay. And just before we get to M, Eddie, want to introduce yourself and who you played?
Hello. Ooh, is my mic screaming?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, I'm sorry. I'll
Better.
mute it in a second. I am Evan. I am Zombie Love Juice. I am Evan Jennings 64 on Twitter, and I played Eddie in the Sabat game. And that's it. I don't know what we're doing for introductions. Is that it?
That's pretty good.
There's a Nosferatu behind you, man.
Yeah. It's all right. That's where I like it.
Darkness, you kind of have to assume that anyway.
Yeah.
It's a doppelganger.
Okay. M.
So my comparison is in terms of horror games because I've never played Vampire before, and I thought it was a really good experience. It took me a little bit to understand the rules, but once you start picking it up, it kind of gets a little bit faster. The other horror game I've played is Call of Cthulhu, and in terms of what I liked better, I actually like the storytelling aspects of Vampire better because I feel like Call of Cthulhu, there's a lot of rules. And it really digs into the roleplay aspects. Like there's a lot of rolling. There's, let me try to see if I can, search well or not. And the successes are based on, the percentile dice. So I found that the storytelling was much better integrated. And getting to the messy critical debate from before, I liked it better when the storyteller vetoed it if necessary. So having a messy critical fit the circumstance was really nice because it's like, Alexander got fed up and ripped a thing in half. That was entertaining. But in other circumstances, if it doesn't make as much sense, then it's like I would like the storyteller to veto it. So having the messy critical be a thing occasionally didn't really bother me. But I liked that we had a good enough storyteller to understand that it doesn't work in a lot of senses.
I agree with that. But a thing I didn't like was rules as written. A messy critical that is vetoed should be a failure.
Mm-hmm.
That which I did not like.
Yeah, you get
rules as written. A messy critical that doesn't fit the scenario is a failure.
I would say a good compromise to that, a good home rule for that to help kind of still make hunger and messy crit thing important without completely removing it from the situation by vetoing it entirely would be to have kind of a I know Powered by the Apocalypse has this system and it really wasn't kind of implemented in V5, but the idea of success with a cost. So yeah, you remember the thing, but maybe you get it slightly wrong for an intelligence thing.
Right.
Or
You
heck, even a
remember the
rouse
thing,
check.
Maybe you punch off a door.
Yeah.
Or
The other
even
thing-
No rouse check, because that system in and of itself needs in my opinion, once we get to my full rundown, I'll go over that. But that needs a whole rework, so I would not do a rouse check. But I would do if it's an intelligence test, how do you do a messy critical for remembering a history point? Well, you either have it fail or but I got 7 successes. What the hell? So okay, you remember it, but you remember it in such a way that it kind of shades your opinion of it in a specific way. So yeah, Napoleon, he was a great guy.
The one thing I'd add on to that is another permutation from
out there that he wasn't.
There we go.
Listen, he went on vacation. There was no exile.
The one
Totally
thing I'd add on
vacation.
to that, rules wise, is another permutation from Powered by the Apocalypse is Blades in the Dark, where anytime you get a messy crit that isn't immediately apparent, you could have a threat clock, right? You could the beast could be building, right?
Mhm.
And so I think there are a couple different ways you could slice it to be like, okay, we just added one to your fucking frenzy clock, so good job with that, right?
Soul did that once or twice on us, actually. And I see the messy crit. I don't know what to do with it right now. I'll remember it for later, though.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool when you did that, Saul.
And I liked it when Throck took the messy crit that Calvin had on perception and turned it into Calvin seeing like what the Sabat characters had actually done, and it costing him a little touch of humanity.
Again, that thing with a cost.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, if we weren't doing that, I would have never had my beginning thing with the house on the stealth roll.
Yep.
The greatest
I like it.
secret we had in this entire chronicle was the romance between Aventru and their Malkavian.
Yes.
I did like when for Celine trying to remember an occult thing where
Oh yeah.
Throck pulled from my backstory and made me be angry because of that. So that was.
Yeah, I mean, it pushes narration, right? Like, it's certainly,
Right.
like, in and of itself, the mechanic pushes narration. It just needs, I think, some shades of nuance.
On the specific topic of messy crits, just so that I'm not like circling back to an argument later. My feeling in the matter is very simple in that a critical success should never mean a failure. So if it's a system that's so awkward that it has to be house ruled or altered, like even say a third of the time, that's a bad system. That's a badly written system. And this will tie into other things I have to say about it. But I think that on the one hand, it brings you to some really cool roleplay moments. On the other hand, I think it could be done better. I think any of the suggestions that I've heard in here, for example, are great. And we're just spitballing. I don't know where they were coming from.
Connery
Was there
was
anything
next.
else? Oh, was there anything else, Em, just before we move on to Connery?
No, I just wanted to bring up the comparison with a different horror system.
Okay. Connery, you're up.
So, just to re-verify, the question was like where you come from combined with what you thought of the system.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been playing the first gaming book I ever purchased with my own money was actually Vampire Dark Ages. I have Clan Gangrel, the old Dark Ages tattooed on me. That was my first tattoo. So I've been playing a while, and Vampire Masquerade is kind of where my home is when it comes to my roots as a gamer. So that being said, V5 came at a point when I had really moved on from Masquerade, because I had moved on to Chronicles of Darkness stuff, and I feel like that system kind of took a whole bunch of the ideas that were being outdated, refreshed it, and made it my thing for what ended up being a 15-year hiatus from Masquerade. Now we get V5, and when that book came out, we had gotten review copies. So I was actually reviewing it as it was getting ready to be released, and at first really excited because, oh my God, it's Masquerade again. And the more I've gotten through it, the more I'm realizing that this book really, and I'm trying to say this with the most like love for the system and those who created it as possible, but I don't know who this book was made for. It feels like it has just enough lore, but not enough lore to help a new player. And it has some rules, but not enough rules for somebody who's coming from the older system. So, for example, like, what the hell do I do with the Tremere that was around before the shittening happened? You just kind of, oh, well, I guess you forgot all your paths. Good luck.
Yeah.
Did that affect everyone? Did the people who had it before, do they remember their spells, so to speak? I mean, like, what are we talking about here? Did we just lose the information? Like, there was too much kind of guesswork as to what happened. And from what I heard, I think Death by Mage pointed this out. Jack, you said that the new player's book was going to address a bunch of stuff to fill in gaps for people.
Well, that's what the description says.
Well, we got a whole bunch of descriptions about the Camarilla and Anarch books. But I just felt like they left so much kind of on the cutting room floor. If they had focused if they had done what it felt like they did, what they intended to do, which was focus on new players, I say it should have been Thin Bloods. The whole game should have been Thin Bloods. There should have been no ability to create a character that was more than 20 years dead. Done. And say, we'll release stuff later that will allow you to play your centuries-old vampires. But V5 was structured around the idea of a Thin Blood campaign. And
the Bloodline sequel is going to be.
Yeah.
Well,
and that
it was structured around it, but you had the option to not. So it was super like I could be wimpy or actually a vampire.
Yeah, but
they gave you both options, so you never wanted to play Thin Blood.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that's the thing is like I agree that if you truly wanted to introduce it to brand new people, if that was the point, and then build everything else back into it, you should have done that. But I hadn't even considered.
Oh, she does this.
Yeah, this happens.
Am I frozen?
Yeah, now you're back.
It was a great date, though.
I hadn't even considered the idea of trying to bring an old character into the new system. That hadn't even crossed my mind until just now.
And I feel like if the Thin Bloods had been given that spotlight like they should have, you wouldn't have the problem of the Thin Bloods seeming, no pun intended, watered down. Because they would have been the default. And then you add on the vampiric lineages to create this growing world. But because, and I got this from several of the developers that I talked to, people who worked on it, different interviews I did prepping for the review, I got this feeling of that Requiem hurt people somehow. That people were hurt by Requiem's release because Masquerade went away. So this was to make up for that. This was to give a Band-Aid to those people. And to me, I'm like, well, V20 already came out.
Yeah.
And that kind of did everything that all the Masquerade fans wanted.
Yep.
So how was V5 supposed to fix a thing that wasn't even a problem? Because Requiem is a full-on reboot. Nobody took away your Masquerade books. Still play Masquerade. You're fine. And honestly, leading up to and continue and the completion of the Gehenna books and the Time of Judgment stuff, I mean, it got its ending. It's got its closure. So what's the problem? Other than the fact that Masquerade has always been a bit of a busted mess. But, you know, rules-wise.
the problem, Connery, is money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. So V5, it's a child lost at a crossroads to me, and it feels like it's trying to do too many things at once, and like I think I do think there's some stuff that was really good, like Hunger. I think changing it from the gas tank of blood points that it used to be to turning it into something that's now like this affects you. It really affects you. Was a good idea. I just don't think 5 points and that's it was the way to go. I like my simple fix. If we're talking about, you know, home editing systems here, double that pool and make markers within that pool. So like if you have Hunger 2, you're at the first stage of Hunger. If you're at Hunger 4, maybe Hunger 5, you're at the second stage, and make it a sloping graph where it's like you have Hunger 1 to 3 is not as desperate. Hunger 4, 5 is getting more desperate. 6 is getting like 6, 7, like have it be like a condensing thing where you're at Hunger 10, or make it a bell curve or something, you know?
I like that idea because it makes it so that the feeding is not getting in the way of the story. Which is almost like the whole thing with what you're saying, where you only have 5 of those hunger things. It's like, well, I don't want to use my powers. I'm going to be a fucking raging lunatic in 6 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that. I don't want to use my powers. Like, and then it's as soon as you use your cool vampire power, well, I got to go kill a guy. Like, really? Like, what? Being a vampire sucks. Like,
well, and building on that, it's Of these feeding, how many of you cut down on the amount of time feeding took eventually?
Not until I hit blood hunger 3 did I ever start thinking of feeding. So soul would, I think we were rather conservative, so I don't know if it affected our game as much. What do you think, Win?
I made compromises for when it came to feeding and stuff like that, because we were always trying to work within a 3-hour time window. Yep. Keep it underneath that, because a lot of us have to, we go into work. We didn't stream on the weekend during the mornings, so we kind of, there were certain narrative decisions where Red Cap needed a feed. I'm like, well, you have one of Sebastian's little thralls that you could feed off of. Let's just say you got it there. And we would just roll the dice, in their predator pool in order to, feed, and they would get a random residence from it. So that's how we solved that system.
Right, and that was my whole thing, was it felt like it impeded on the storytelling, because it's a cool thing to walk through the scenarios, but when it happens so often, how do you get through a story?
Because if this was a longer chronicle where we weren't trying to condense it down into 12 episodes, it's easier to tell that story. But we were so constricted on telling a very specific narrative happening in a city during a very pivotal moment, which is amazing, and I loved every part about it. But I feel like in order for those, those predator type stories to actually confer, and be told correctly, it needs to happen over a broader arc, because it could go completely that direction while you still have your main threat looming above, always there, while this story is going that direction. There's a lot of great storytelling to be told when you venture off from this path, especially when this thing right here is looming and hanging right above you, and you're giving it more time to prep.
Yeah. Well, I might be able to give you guys a little understanding in that regard. I'm not going to name a name of who because I talked to several developers that worked for the game. Balance was actually kind of scoffed at during development of this game. When I brought it up, they were like, vampire balanced? That's kind of the response I got.
That makes sense.
Since I also spoke with some of the developers, most of them, yes, I'm fully aware of that statement.
Yeah. So the idea that vampire players don't want a system that they're there only for the lore, but then to put out the book with the system, I felt like it was a complete misstep in understanding your community in that regard. I mean, that's kind of been the tale of the tape for the past several years now when it comes to these kinds of things. I mean, I look at V5 and I think this has the opportunity to be a very good system, and if it had another year in the tank with some proper play testing and real idea of, hey, let's balance this, and it doesn't need a lot to balance, it just needs a little scooching in places. It's not absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, fortitude is just so necessary, and some powers are just so good. Basically, if it doesn't cost a rouse check, it's the best thing ever.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, level 5.
Which a lot of the fortitude powers don't cost rouse checks. So you just max out your fortitude, and you can outlast people even if you're fighting them with a spoon.
Yeah, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Work for dogs.
God forbid you do something like, I don't know, have to feed on vampire blood in V5.
Yeah, I took that.
You people did.
So did Eddie.
I did, but I did that and organivore, so I had to eat their organs. So they had to be alive, sort of, or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Super pain in the ass.
Yeah, they couldn't be ashed. It would be.
But that's another thing that, going back to the hunger thing, that almost like me and you, Conrad, we had Let's Feed on Vampires, and so in a game with a short time frame, like for your guys' finale, and it happened to us a lot too. For you guys' finale, he was like, all right, I'm just gonna say you're able to go get somebody from your, you got the kidnapped person. Sometimes you have to do that, and absolutely no Yeah, that it eats away at the role play a little bit because it's like, well, I have to go eat a vampire.
No, well,
Right
you
now, it's not
create
like,
this situation where there's like now there's a whole bunch of like jobber vampires out there that you just go and feed on that are like the absolute like, let me just go find a thin blood, and I'll be good.
Yeah,
kind of a thing, and it actually kind of devalues the impact that every little vampire has. Can you not rip down my background, please?
That's why you only had to eat like every once in a while because it's like, all right, it's been like 2 days.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go kill Gary. You know what I mean? And like go fucking hunt down and kill Gary. And it's like awesome. Now Gary's gone. Like that man is gone. Like that's I don't know. I feel like when I saw it on the thing, I was like, oh shit, that's a power or like that's a choice. Yes, you know what I mean? Like it's awesome. I'm a cannibal among cannibals. I love it. But like you don't realistically because you have to eat every fucking day. It's a little bit like, well, this is a little ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like now, it's sort of annoying. I would still love to play that because I like the idea, but like if you guys are saying V20, it's a little bit more, loosey goosey. I like that a little bit more. I think that makes a little bit more sense.
Onyx Path honestly has some really strong game design in their back pocket. So when they were like, oh, okay, we're going to go back to the Masquerade system and like iron this shit out so that everybody can play in the same world. Because honestly, Vampire was never meant to be played with Werewolf, was never meant to be played with Mage, was never meant to be played with any of the other games. Like they all had different skill sets and different scenarios. Like when you made a werewolf in Vampire, you were supposed to use Vampire rules to create a werewolf XP. So when Onyx Path went and made the V20 system, it's like, okay, we're going to make a unified system that works for everything, kind of the way that Chronicles of Darkness was built up. And they did a great job, and it's a very well balanced system for those of us who yearn for balance in our system. V5 advances the storyline. Yeah, it adds in this real concept of true thin bloods rather than just the time of thin bloods that was around earlier, which was just like we're because Kaitif were supposed to be the thin blood.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember.
That blood was so weak.
I want to hear from the Sabat storyteller. Oh, sorry, Connery. I thought sounded like you were done.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty much wrapping up. I was expanding.
Because I knew there was I knew there's Zed has thoughts.
Everyone just mute your mics.
Yep, everyone mute. 3, 2, 1.
That's okay. Doesn't need to be all that, but yeah. I mean, I've oh my god, they really did all mute. Oh, holy shit, that's weird. Okay, come back because the lack of white noise is actually fucking with me.
Oh shit.
Yeah, there were notes taken. There were notes taken.
Oh my god. So here's the thing. So Thrak gave the best diplomatic response way at the beginning of this question. And it well, okay, whatever. So here's the thing. From a lore perspective, so here's what I'll say. If you want to play the best vampire game that's been made out of all of them, then you go play Requiem. In my opinion, Requiem is the tip-top vampire game they ever made. Why? Partially because it was made by the people who made the original Vampire, who after 20 years of dealing with all of their, drunken mistakes, because pro tip for it, or not pro tip, but like, just as an interesting note, the old White Wolf offices used to have a beer vending machine in them. So yeah. So after they eventually had figured out what all had gone wrong for years and years and years, they made in what is, in my opinion, the best vampire system. And it's perfect for new players because all of the lore is removed and altered. I can't see what it says. Strongly agree. But so that's the game that if you're new to Vampire, that's the one that, in my opinion, that's the one that you really want to bring people into.
That has been so upset that no one has let him run a Requiem game. So upset.
I would play Requiem every day.
Oh, I know. And so here's the thing. So Thrak had originally suggested when we mentioned going on for Berlin 66, I can't see that. It's all washed out. But Thrak had mentioned Okay, yeah. Oh, with metal fingers. When we for Berlin 66, he was like, well, why don't you convert it to Requiem? I'm like, well, but the characters won't cross over properly. So the issue that people had with Requiem is that it doesn't have any of the old lore. So people who have been playing this game and invested in this game for like 20 plus years at this point, they were very sad because their lore had gone away. Okay, fine. So that's why V20 got made. That was supposed to fix that problem. And it did, by the way, because if you want the best version of the old World of Darkness, V20 is it. V20 fixes all of those. V20 fixes all of those problems. They took house rules that people have been playing with for 15 fucking years and enshrined them into law. They did it exactly right. This game, for me, is a half measure, kind of frankly a fucking abomination between the two. They took the lore, but then said we don't like half the lore, so we're going to get rid of it. They took the clans, and then they said, but we don't like half the clans, we're going to get rid of them. And then they took the disciplines and the abilities and every part of it, and they said, okay, we're going to reinvent an awful lot of wheels. Why? Because we fucking feel like it. They fixed things that weren't broken, and they broke things that used to be fixed, and they threw it all together in this mishmash of bleh, and pushed it out as if, like, after playing it for a couple of weeks, we wouldn't go, wait, are we beta testing for them? Because that's what we're doing. So like I fucking love Vampire. I like Vampire. So I've been playing Vampire. I was like, what? How old was I? 15, I think, maybe younger when the not Bloodlines, but the one that came before it came out with Pissed Off Christoph. That was my first. That was my first introduction to Vampire, and I reread that because this was back in the day when PC games came with manuals and lore books, and I reread that lore book so many fucking times until someone said, "You know, that's a real game, right?" And I went, "What do you mean a real game?" And I had been playing D&D for a little bit, and so they showed me the game, and I went, oh, and it was a whole world. And then, you know, cut to so many years later, and I've been playing it for this whole time, and I've been running humongous LARPs. I've gotten jobs because of my LARP ST experience, and I'm talking like big people. Like I got my teaching job partially because of my LARP experience.
Because you can manage a bunch of cats.
Essentially, yeah, it's herding fucking cats, and I had 65 of them for like 3 years. So here's the thing, right? Is if you want to make a game like this, you can't just get rid of all of the systems that people have come to know and love, and all of the clans and all of the lore. If you want to set it in that universe, which clearly they do, they're setting it in the universe in which all of these other clans exist, and yet they decided that, okay, you know what, fuck Sabbat. Why? But they gave some of the Sabbat's coolest shit to everyone else. Everyone can ride the fucking beast now. Why? Like
my next game that's out.
I can't.
Well, like you can't do it.
It's one of those things where it's like that was a defining characteristic of the paths of
enlightenment.
Thank you. I was going to say humanity. I'm like, that's the wrong word. Of the paths of enlightenment. And, you know, with the paths in particular, like one of the coolest parts of playing the Sabbat is that you have all these different characters on these different paths of enlightenment. So like I've got my guy who's on like Path of Power and the Inner Voice, which by the way, all Elder Ventru end up on eventually, you know, trying to have a conversation with a guy who's on Honorable Accord. And the one guy is never going to lie, and yet somehow is going to come out the bad guy. And these were great. Or my very favorite path of Cathari, which is all about like the Gnostic heresy, and like we all agree that we are in fact the evil of the universe, and our whole job is to test the good guys, make sure that they're worthy of surviving at the end times. That's fucking badass. And they just
I love that. I still love that path.
It's so good. And they got rid of all of it because you know, they wanted to only have humanity.
These paths are in V20 again, right?
Yes, but so they gave them.
So Zombie, you'll get the path. pass. You'll get all the
so
things.
so they gave them so they decided humanity is the only thing. This is it. This is all. But they gave people on humanity the thing that they were supposed to not be able to have, which is the ability to ride the beast, which is like this weird attunement with your beast. So you're humane, but you're not humane. I don't know. I don't dig it. I don't get it. There were. I'll slow down because otherwise we really will be here for like 20 more minutes with all these. what I will. Oh yeah.
Yes.
What I will say is, I can't stand the layout of the book. I think White Wolf, if you watch this ever, hire Jackie. Hire him to do your goddamn layout. It's, by the way, not hard to do 2 columns.
The next question. Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
I should never be reading a page and have a hard time following the thread of what the fuck they're telling me.
Oh god, the Camarilla book is so fucking hard to read.
It's the worst on that. Yeah.
Well, besides a lot of other issues with that Camarilla book.
So here's what I think really happened is they said, we want to make a new book and we want it to be our system and we want to make this thing ours. We want to really put our stamp on it. New bosses in town. Okay, well, why don't you make a new game? Well, Requiem didn't sell well. Okay. So now what? Well, we got to use all the old stuff, but they're not really using the old stuff. They're just kind of using the old stuff. It's Requiem with like old names and new, I don't know.
There's a meaty skin suiting it.
Yeah. Yes. So nice. So my condensed version, go play Requiem if you want to get into the best version of Vampire ever. Play a Mech-It. You'll fucking love it.
Mech-It!
If you want to play
next question.
If you want to play the best version,
probably should do next.
Otherwise, I want to see what they do. I'm interested in what happens next, but.
Jackie.
Well, I don't have much to say, but we want to welcome Skeleton to the stream.
Hey, timing is immaculate.
Yes, you literally missed like the longest rant possible.
It was like the filibuster of a Gangrel thing.
That definitely trumps. That definitely competes against Patton Oswalt's Star Wars filibuster.
I had a moment, the stream audio still on, and the call started, and it was like I was just bombarded with noise. Like,
surprise!
So laughing our asses off over here.
Tim,
yeah.
So
yes,
why don't you tell the chat, tell the stream who you are, or who you played?
Yes, hello. I popped in early in the chat. I'm Skeleton. You can find my Twitter, Skella_Tim. I played in the Anarch game as Mr. Marion, the Torador Tailor, and I have really enjoyed this campaign, and I'm happy to answer any questions and chat about it. So, and I have Meatloaf now. I'm very excited for this.
And the 2-year-old coterie.
Well, if it makes anybody feel any better, we only got through 2 questions.
Oh my god!
Somebody asked about the system, and everybody's got opinions on that.
Yeah. We had to know that last one was good.
Thanks, Maddie.
That one
It's a good time to do character-specific
That one
questions.
had legs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
do we have a player question?
Yes,
Directed to one of the players.
We have at least 30 of them. So yes.
Okay, let's ask the players some questions.
Let's ask some player questions. So I will start from show order: Sabat, Anarch, and Camarilla. We're gonna pick a random one here. Let's go with Gianna. Does Gianna really believe in Cain?
So she believes that Cain exists. She believes that Cain is the originator of the vampire condition. However, she doesn't totally believe that Cain thought of it all by himself. So anybody looking at the book, and I'm forgetting what the actual path is called. This is why I was going to pull up my sheet, and now I'm going to pull up my sheet. Because while we are still continuing the Sabat campaign, I think this is a cool thing for people to know. And I know during character creation, it kind of got brought up. Was the fact that Gianna is a believer in Lilith, specifically. Flicker. Sorry, I'm trying to get my thing in really quick here. so that I can actually call the thing the right thing. But she is trying to understand it better. So her sire introduced her to Lilith, and that Lilith was sort of one of the originators of the ideas for how the Sabbat functions, and kind of like guided Cain. And that's one of the big things that Gianna wanted to learn more about. She only has 1 dot in that particular lore, so she doesn't know a lot, but she wants to find out more about it. So that thing is called, where is it? Is it Chronicle? Yes, it is Chronicle. It is the Bahari, the Path of Lilith. So she has lore in that specific path. So it's not that she doesn't believe in Cain. It's that she understands that Cain is the originator of the vampiric condition, but that all the ideas weren't his. But she doesn't know a ton. She wants to find out more. So that's Gianna.
Awesome.
Yeah, her sire taught her a lot of things, but also left a lot of gaps.
Well, they'll probably be explored in the next game, won't they? Alrighty, thank you, Portia. So we'll toss this question to Redcap. Oh wait, he's not there. Let's do Marion.
How do we come back?
So Marion, your question is: if the game went on for 10 more sessions, what would Marion's plans for the city? What would be Marion's plans in the city? Let's rephrase that.
Ooh, yeah. I love this question because it's like laying out all these great plans that I know Soul would just destroy. Like, like Marion wants to do this, and this. And if we played 10 more sessions, Soul would be like, yes, how can I ruin the boy? Yeah.
Murder his friend.
Sorry.
No,
he already did that.
Yeah, well, that was it gets complicated. I mean, yeah, so a lot of it, like after the finale, Marion's still kind of dealing with that guilt and a lot of just like how far he sank in that moment, and like the blood bond with Houghton is a big thing he still wants to resolve. So I feel like he would probably kind of spread the word of the Houghtons and help like establish the Toreadors in the Anarch Free State so they're not hunted down like Camarilla, and kind of get the Houghtons in a good place. But then after that, I think the shock of killing Dante was enough to get him away from that, enough like foresight on the blood bond to be like, maybe I shouldn't upkeep this, because I was reading about like you have to continue the feedings for a while to actually like secure it. So I was thinking Marion would eventually try to trail off from that and separate from the vampire politics entirely. He was like, maybe this Houghton thing wasn't a great idea in the first place, but hey, at least it got us Anarch Free State, and maybe the Toreador clan can rebuild and be less pricks about everything.
Historically, they do. They are.
Yeah.
So you're the winning side of history.
Yeah, that feels good. But yeah, the main thing Marion is going to do is try to rebuild his shop. He's going to get reconnected to Hollywood, and he's just going to keep working on his stuff. And the thing I mentioned before is like, I think he would want some sort of tribute to Dante, and he keeps trying to make the suit Dante was wearing, but he just can't get it right. And I think he'd spend probably 5 of those 10 sessions over and over again, like, just trying to make it perfect, to be like, how do I make this thing catch on? How do I make this his Toreador creation? Because he's wanted one from the beginning. The whole concept was he was a tailor that was very good at technical skill, but could not creatively express himself. He had to like copy other things. So I think he would try to make Dante's suit into like his big creative expression and try to get a model to wear it and turn it into the next hot thing in LA.
I loved your facial expression, by the way, when we dropped the Norma Jean Taylor name.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, oh, okay. Yeah, I would love to. And I was like, yes, he went with it.
Yeah, that I was reading up on her. That's like, oh, I love everything about like all the decisions made there was so good. And also I want to link real quick while I still have the spotlight. I've commissioned a friend for some Marion art, and she posted a sneak peek tonight of another piece of a big scene. So I linked that in the chat, and I'm excited to see the finished piece. So I wanted to share that. Nice. That scene done.
That's good.
It got me good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That scene.
But yeah, that's all I have to say. It was a joy and pleasure to play Marion in this campaign.
Did a great job. And for
That's
this next
so cool.
question, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So for the next question, we'll give this to Nerdy Teddy for Celine. Would Celine really have left the city after finding the ashes, or was she just upset?
I will say this. I did talk to or to Leona before, so it was set up so that she wouldn't. But if Audra hadn't come talk to her, she would have left. She would have left because she was loyal to the Toreador and to Flicker, not as much to Don Sebastian himself. So without Flicker, she was going to just bail.
Would you have made another character?
No, because like I said, I set it up so that Leona, or so that Audra would come talk to me. I talked to her outside of
Wait, this is a problem.
I can't find an in-character way out of this. She would leave. Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
I do want to point out that I am impressed that none of the games had to require secondary backup characters.
I was so close. I was so close.
Yes, you were.
I found the powers and stuff to be so uninteresting. I wanted my backup character to be immortal.
He did, actually.
Yeah.
That was planned.
Yeah.
I never needed it, but I wanted my backup character to be immortal.
I remember that talk in the chat.
But then I learned dementation is broken, so.
Oh, man. So we have a question for Throck. This is an anonymous question. Throck, an RPG story with 3 different player groups is a ballsy move. How do you think it turned out? And what would you have done differently if you did it again?
I think it turned out awesome. Duh. And I would 100% do it again. And I will be next year, in fact. I think, and between then and now, there will be even more Chronicles of Darkness within the Mother of Monsters meta plot. So you should stick around and check that out. What made me think of it? Was that the question? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, actually, it didn't say that, but you can answer that part of the question if you want.
Yeah, I used to run big LARPs. Me and Ben both used to run big-ass LARPs, right? And I was super excited when I heard V5 was coming out, and I'm like, wouldn't this be an awesome opportunity to try and run something akin to a LARP on stream? You're never going to have a real LARP on stream because you can't really do it, right? Like, the technology does not exist for someone to be watching multiple conversations at the same time. But what you can do is have multiple interlocking stories, right? And so originally, the beginning. I love noir. I love noir. So noir and grimdark are like my favorite things on the planet, right? Like those are the things that I immediately, and I just have this brain spasm recently that they are essentially the same thing. One's just fantasy and one is just like urban horror, for lack of a better term. And I've always wanted to do something set in LA during World War II. And then when Vampire came out, I'm like, this is the perfect moment to do something I don't think anyone else is going to do, which is tell the story of the Anarch Revolt in like a vaguely noir-y fashion, and do it with as high production value as we can get, and try and tell multiple interlocking stories. And add in the Sabbat, even though they weren't really involved in it, because I think they're interesting. And yeah, so that's where it started. Was I heard about V5 in May, and I'm like, I want to do this, and so I kind of started talking about it then. And then it really kicked into high gear when the book came out. And then it morphed into this, well, why don't I just tell a year-long massive chronicle with multiple storytellers and different time frames and different systems? And yeah, that's how it happened.
I remember when we first spoke about this whole thing.
Yeah. It worked, damn it.
It did.
It was done really well.
Okay, let's see. Do we want so we'll continue with we'll do another round of character questions before we consider maybe taking a short break. Just so everyone knows, in chat, we are doing a giveaway for a hardcover Vampire Masquerade 5th edition book, along with actually dice sets as well. So please be sticking around in chat. We will, Throck, you'll be handling that part. Yes? Okay. So we'll go on to the next one. So we'll go back to the Sabbat. I have to ask this one because it made me laugh the first time I saw it. This is directed at Roxy. Roxy, why so angry?
Why are you mad?
There's a lot of feelings in there.
I know.
What?
Is that it? You have a lot of feelings in there? Is that your whole explanation?
I mean, it always came at like a point because of like a messy critical. You know what I mean? Like, to be fair. And I just kind of rolled with it ever since then, to be honest. But I kind of like it. And I would say it would probably come back to how she was sired. I would have to say, like, if I'm gonna put like any backstory to it, it's how she came to be, as well as look at her and what her career path was, and that is taken from her. Like, that is gone. She will never have that the way that she wants it as herself. If she wants that in the future, she will have to be somebody else.
What did she want that she can't have anymore? Because I'm not sure everyone knows.
So she is, or was, I guess like a B footage kind of like B movie kind of actress. She wanted to be an actress. So that was her career path, and it never like took off. And she just took the wrong audition one day, and that's it. It was gone forever.
I love the moment though when we were in the car before we got jumped by the werewolves, when Roxy used obfuscate to be Gianna, and that was just a moment for me knowing that backstory, being like, ooh.
So I want to tell this, and I can't do it with my headphones in because I'm echoing, so I'm sorry. She, like, the whole plan, if I was able to ever do this in our game, she was going to take your auditions as you. She wanted to be you.
Oh,
classy.
Yeah.
That was the plan.
That's terrifying.
The Sabbat is unbalanced, people. We are not well.
Cut to the crossover in Calvin's studio. Have you ever?
Yes.
I like your.
One Gianna. In walks other Gianna.
Yes.
Which is Gianna?
No, you're twins. Perfect.
Excellent. I have a role for you.
I actually would.
I don't know if anybody else has ever seen Single White Female.
Yeah.
That movie is what you're basically explaining. It's a girl who want ad in for a new tenant in her apartment. Single white female. Sign up, and then they just start. They get to be close, and
That's
then
the one with Aubrey Plaza, right?
You know what?
Really?
I've heard about this.
Oh, it's creepy. There's one scene, it's the most terrifying scene in the movie, and it's when she comes down after getting her hair cut exactly and colored exactly like the other girl.
Yeah.
And it's that.
It's creepy.
That is my character.
It's great.
It's like, oh no.
All right, so we'll move over
Hi,
to
Shadamura. Sorry.
We'll go over to the Anarch side. This one's directed to Eli. Would Eli ever abandon the morals of the Anarchs to become a vigilante?
You already asked them.
You already asked
Oh, I
that.
did. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Is there a storyteller one?
Yes, there
I
is.
gotta go for
Okay.
like 5 minutes and come back after.
Okay, so if you want, I'll save that for a little later then, if that's okay with you. Or you're not, or you leave it, or you're bouncing.
Oh no! I'll leave after, but like yeah.
Okay.
When I mean 5, I mean like 15.
Oh, okay. So I'll give it to you, Quinn.
Oh,
what part of the city were you most excited for your players to experience?
Christ!
We never.
I wanted them to go to the church, but they never did.
Speaking of Christ,
Yeah.
Body of Christ.
The Cathedral of Our Lady of Angels, thank you. Which is a real church. It's still standing in LA. It's just be refurbished and it looks modern now.
oh, I wish you would have said that. My other idea for the touchstone was a church.
Even with Dante's background, because I had some of that stuff still in there with certain merits that could have killed me with a cross, could have killed me with a stake and stuff like that. I wouldn't have stepped inside the church because of his Catholic beliefs.
Yeah, probably. No, they went to the Nosferatu labyrinth, and that's the part I was really looking forward to, aside from the church. So they got to explore that. They got to meet Regina, who, may she rest in peace, bastards.
Delicious.
I was starting to like her.
Ugly on the outside, but tasty on the inside.
There was a moment between the storytellers where we were considering them going as far south as Pendleton, maybe, because of certain NPC reasons they would actually pursue down there. Because did they go to San Diego? Did Landerhaven and Lucille went to San Diego? That's what we all agreed upon, right, guys?
Well, Landerhaven did. Lucille stayed. Yeah. Oh no, well, Lucille did go with her for a bit and then came back. Yeah.
And then came back. Yeah, that's what happened. So Garcia and Landerhaven. Garcia actually got Landerhaven out, which is kind of like their last friendship moment, whatever you could justify that as.
Frenemies.
Frenemies, yeah, pretty much. And if the Anarchs pursued that path of like, they killed my sire, they would have had to gone through Pendleton, gone through Marine Corps logistics, gone through the railways, gone through. It probably would have killed them. They probably would have died, because as much as everybody thinks they're a badass vampire, it's also the United States Marine Corps during wartime. You're gonna get killed. So that would have been interesting, and they didn't do that. But yeah, I mean, the Nosferatu labyrinth was a good trade-off. So they did it. Got to see it. And the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Sorry. It's the other one. Okay, now I'm done.
Thank you. So we'll give this question to Calvin. Would Calvin have ever betrayed Audra?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
He immediately would have. But
I am so happy she got to hear that too.
Yes.
I don't know if she heard it. The break is up, so she might have already buffed away. But
she'll hear it. I would tell her that.
Somebody just go clip that.
He told her to her face that there is nothing for him to betray her for, and he meant it. It would take quite a bit for him to do that. Because once you are known as a betrayer in like Camarilla circles, that doesn't go away. People might respect it, but they're not going to trust you again. So that's a bridge you can only burn once in the Camarilla. He doesn't. Anything he says to the Sabbat is simply another tactic of war against the Sabbat. Because you're awful.
It's also called lying.
Lied. I'm just saying.
Liar, you.
Okay, you know what? I gotta get out of the way. The Sabbat didn't eat puppies and kittens.
The Sabbat was Calvin made a deal with
Hold on. At the same time, though, the Sabbat did drive a spike through an innocent woman who was also sitting across from the puppies and kittens. So, I mean, really, give it take.
I'm gonna call it was Emmett.
So the thing with Calvin and Audra is it would take quite a bit for him to betray her, but he's always a little suspicious of her and proud of her when she did make moves, like strong moves. He kind of saw himself as like a teacher to her a bit, but that was part of the back and forth of it, is they both kind of evolved into a teamwork. And the real reason I made a deal with the Sabbat was because he was making moves to injure everyone there, which could have hurt my coterie. That's why I made the agreement. And an agreement made under duress does not have to be upheld in my mind.
Meh.
Whatever, Camarilla.
I've had fun.
Blood bond and your masquerade.
We had it years later, so I'm not mad.
No, it proved.
It proves his point.
Yeah, it made Ivan feel so right. That's part of why it was so cool.
Oh, I love
because it just gave Ivan so much satisfaction.
Nice.
Calvin is a great character.
Oh God, I love Calvin so much.
Yeah.
I still
I'm
really,
Gary Calvin.
really
There's
hope to have. I still really hope me and Kevin talked every once in a while about having a Calvin and Eddie interaction where Calvin is basically just sort of backing up, trying to make deals with Eddie, and Eddie's just like, "Here I come." He's like, "Something, I will fucking think of something," and he like
Eddie
pulls something out. What?
Hey Eddie, be careful about that. I had the same conversation with Marion. He shot me.
That's true. That's true. You know what?
Right in the head.
Marion didn't shoot you. Marion did not shoot you.
All of the,
Not
all of
Marion.
Tell me again about the rabbits, Marion.
I got your back, Tim. I have your back. That was not Marion. Brutal. Had a bratty little Methuselah running around in his head.
Oh man.
All that counts is just sitting there. Control or Conry will remember.
Yeah, Conry will remember this, indeed.
So we actually have questions for the NPCs. So for the respective STs who had to run them, this is.
Do we want to
going
do break? It is 9:30.
Oh yeah, we are. So let's
Yeah.
take a break.
I thought this was going to be 2 hours.
Now, I will say for everyone who's here, feel free to drop in and drop out. Like, this is it's a community conversation, but don't feel beholden to be here if you got somewhere to be because we love you and we wanted to celebrate everyone's character, but it might go 3 hours. It looks
Although
like.
stick around for the drawing and the prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
feel like-
before we go to
I feel
break.
like-
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so before we go to break, I'm going to open the giveaway. All you have to do is press type !family, and you will be entered into the giveaway for a V5 book and dice set proudly proffered to us by our very own Death by Mage. I would ask that you only enter the giveaway if you don't already have the book to give everyone a chance to get it who doesn't have it. If you've got the PDF or whatever. But like, just, yeah, if you don't have it, get in there. Get in on it. Let's do this thing. And with that, we're going to go to break. But here's the problem. OBS doesn't like, oh, actually, I can just do this. I can do, boop, nope, that was the wrong thing. Okay, let's do that. And then we'll do, hang on, please hold. That? There we go. Okay, now we're going to be out.
Sergeant First Class Mark Wood.
Okay, team, I'm bringing us back in. And we're back. There we go. I love these strongly agree cards. That's the best. That we're back, so we're gonna wait just 5 or 10 minutes to let more people get in. A ton of people are on the giveaway, but we wanted to ask some questions first to make you sit and wait before we did the giveaway. So we will do the giveaway at 9:50. If you want a V5 book, set of V5 dice, and some awesome stickers courtesy of Death by Mage, and the stickers courtesy of So Many Games, you should type !VAMILY in the chat now. And with that, we turn it back over until to Death by Mage to ask us some questions.
Ooh. Nice stickers. They are awesome stickers, by the way. So we're back on the questions. Thank you, Throck. And so this one's going for an NPC. So we did get some questions for the NPCs. This one's going to Sebastian.
Yes! My baby boy is all grown up.
I don't want to hear him talk.
You went from a punching bag to a Samisi meat artist. What's next for you?
Thank you. Well, so probably what is next for me is going back to motherland, and we're going to show people what it is that the Samisi are really all about. Master Ivan, he has much to say. Master Sire, he will always be master to me. But there are many things that we have planned. What was the question?
What would you do
Every
next?
time he speaks, I just see young Frankenstein.
So what's next for? So that was actually the question. What was next for Sebastian after becoming a Samisi?
Wings. I would like wings and a tail. I think, and then preferably a pitchfork made of the bones of my enemies.
He wants to be a skinny little devil.
How dare you call
The fact of the matter is, the next thing on the list for Sebastian is probably a proper exploration of Aji the Hake, which is the Samisi philosophy and belief behind evolution and perfection of self.
What is the path that Zamisi follow? What is it called again?
Metamorphosis.
Yes! Oh, Sebastian!
This is going to be great. You could probably see more of Sebastian in possibly Berlin 66.
Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Both Sebastian and Conrad, most likely.
Ooh.
Because, of course, Danzig has to go home.
Right, he is from Germany.
Do you want to fleshcraft with me?
I don't know that I do.
The terrifying nightmare dreams that will come from that.
But does that answer the question?
Da.
Thank you.
Next question. This question goes to Isaac. Would Isaac ever act on his feelings for Gianna?
Yes and no.
Not anymore.
Yes, because he does every day that he's alive. Like he does. Every single feeling he has for her, he has acted on. He's not really capable of a romantic attraction. Really.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I remember the moment when we were at the party and Gianna had to flirt. And
No, it's like
Chet touched her and was gross with her, and like Ice was like, I look away.
His like at the end his vinculum was 10, and even before that, like he is his ductus, and a lot of his thought is centered around her, but it's in a way of basically being angry at everyone and everything that would use her for anything other than being his ductus, including himself. He would not let himself think of her in any way other than as his ductus, as his commander, as the voice of Cain for him. So no one is allowed to be nice to her in a way that is not as if she is a terrifying leader.
That's actually really cool. I didn't quite see it that way, but that's really nifty.
That really matches your character too. Like that
It really does.
Sounds like his and his like lifeblood. Like what he's
Thank you, Shogun. This one's going to Connie. Who did Redcap Diablerize years ago that Sable was so pissed about?
It was actually he had some time in New York with Sable, and he was getting to a point where he was looking to attain a position of prominence within the city, and he was going for sheriff. And Sable goaded him into going for it and trying to make a statement. And because he came from a very violent past, he was part of the gangs during the draft riots and before in that whole Gangs of New York era. He got into a fight and he gave into the beast and consumed the Bruja sheriff potential, and Sable treated him like a piece of shit for it. And that's part of the reason why they had their schism in the first place, was because he was like, I just did what you fucking told me, you fucking cunt. And she, she let him have it for turning to the beast, and and it just became just a big rift between them. And then the blood hunt was put out for him in New York, and he just bounced on out, headed to Chicago. That didn't turn out well either. Ended up in LA.
Didn't that rival gangrel end up being, or no, the rival Bruja end up being Isaac's sire?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was
That was great.
Yeah. Which Isaac would hug you for.
Yeah, I don't think he gave a shit that he was dead, but it was cool that we could tell him who he was.
Yeah, that was awesome. But when he heard about it, he's like, sweet.
Dude, I loved Henry's face when he was playing that. When Eddie's just like, "Hey, do you know about that?"
I love it too because you're like, oh, I want to be careful, and I'm like, no, I really don't care. I get it. Everyone's just tell me.
He's gotten that shit before of like, hey, do you remember this? And they were, they asked very casually about something they were going to try and kick the shit out of him for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're Redcap's the child of an Archon, so it's like, oh yeah, I got to be careful with my words. So,
true.
Justicar.
Thank you, Connie.
Justicar.
Justicar. Thank
Grandchild of a
Justicar Archon? Or
Child of an Archon, grandchild. Yeah.
I can never remember that.
What a fucking disappointment.
Whoa! Wow.
Oh, wow. Tell us how you really feel.
For the record, this household is divided. I agree with Connery.
I mostly just wanted to get that face. That's all I was going for. I mean none of that.
Oh wow.
I mean, that was one of my favorite things, is being able to fist fight a werewolf while in the Xavier transformation, the Savior shapeshift, which is basically Man-Bat from Batman.
Yep.
Yeah, those things are fucking deadly.
Yeah. And Dante supplied enough distraction so you could win that fight for us.
Use your face.
You soaring leaped off the wall and you dove like a torpedo.
We never got a straight up
werewolf. Oh.
we never got a straight up werewolf fight, but because of that, Isaac never got the impression that they were very dangerous.
Oh, buddy. Listen, you weren't being whipped by one and waffle stomped onto the fucking floor.
No, he was too busy being staged.
Eddie was laughing and having fun, though.
I realize this is not like this isn't the question at hand, but I should mention sort of from back before you asked like surprising things. One of my very favorite just moments from this was Eddie just laughing like a fucking psycho while the werewolf was just bodily slamming him against the ground over and over again. And him just going,
by eating him from the inside out.
From the rib cage. Yes, through the rib cage.
I'm gonna dive down his head hole.
Yeah,
that must be a theme, because I reached up inside his rib cage.
Apparently the best way to a werewolf's heart is literally through their fucking heart.
It won't work when this is busted.
I think though, if I can sort of derail it, the one thing I did enjoy about kind of storytelling, the Anarch game, and I think was the most kind of like in line with what the coterie was originally supposed to be, sort of the espionage, was the Camarilla aspects and that whole social conflict and going back and forth parts of it, which in an espionage sense, if like you had the tinker, the tailor, the soldier, and the spy, like it would have like ended up going perfectly with Tim being the face, Connor being the muscle, Dante sneaking in the shadows, gathering intelligence, and then Eli just being there to bash people's face in too.
So I want to share something. So I didn't share this with anybody, but actually I had code names for all the games. So like for the Anarchs, it's Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. For the Sabbat, it was Monster Mash. And then for the Camarilla, I wrote it as Johnny Quest.
Nice. Oh. And I feel like that is a great place to do our giveaway. This is your last chance. Type !family if you want to get in on a Vampire 5e core rulebook, a set of Vampire 5e dice with the Hunger dice and all that stuff. It's super nice. And then some stickers. The book and the dice are proudly provided by our dear friend and global storyteller right over here somewhere. My camera's all weird now, Death by Mage. And then off in chat, So Maddie, who gave us the amazing sticker giveaway. So you got like 10 seconds while I bring up the chat box to type !family.
Awesome Dealwood shirts.
Dealwood.
Crusade of Thorns.
How many fucking ABUs?
Enough.
Oh.
That was our greatest accomplishment of the campaign, was we destroyed that building.
Cordiero, get back in. I literally hit close as you typed it. Cordiero, get back in.
Cordiero.
Oh, I did actually register you. Okay, we're good. Okay. We're good. All right, gonna pick. Ready? Can I get a drum roll? We got a lot of drums here. Can I get a drum roll, please? Damn. And here we go.
Oh.
Cookie Ghost 12, congratulations. Would you please kindly DM or Death by Mage?
Conrad,
and you will get your prize.
Yep. Just send me a whisper through Twitch and send me all your information.
And whispers So Maddie Games for the stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations! Woo!
Congratulations!
Right. Congratulations, Cookie.
All right.
To you, Death.
Oh.
All right, Death. Where are we going?
We're going back to the Camarilla side, and this one's going to go to Alexander. Has Alexander become more courageous from the trials of LA?
Yes. Short answer, yes. There was a thing that I actually wrote up that if the opportunity had presented itself, I would have read. That was about how he's tired of running away. He ran away from England effectively because of the death of a lover. And so he's kind of somebody who's been trying to get away from people. He got away from family. He got away from death. Like, he's just kind of putting everything off, and he doesn't want to deal with it. And I think this game has made him have to deal with these things. And I think it's made him more courageous just because, like, everything's been in his face. So he's actually had to deal with it, and he's had to, he couldn't put it off. And I think realizing that his decisions affect other people as well, like leaving Calvin behind was a big thing that he regretted. And so he didn't want to leave Celine behind. So I think that, yeah, as chat says, Alexander has grown up. It took him 90 years to grow up, but he did it. So yeah, he's become definitely more courageous.
I specifically noticed that when Alexander stayed for Celine. That was the thing that I noticed as a person watching that stream, was the difference between when Calvin said to run and Alexander went, and when Alexander had the opportunity to run when Celine had told him to, and he didn't. So.
Well, he ran it first. he took listen, yeah, but when he saw that she was, not going to get up, it was time to go fetch her, I suppose.
I mean, still couldn't make the hard decision there in the final game. I had to help you out there.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that at some point, but
he's not going to make the hard decisions to hurt people, but he is going to try and make the hard decisions to prevent hurt, I guess, if that makes sense.
What humanity did Alexander end up at?
Started and ended with 7, I believe. High.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think
Yeah.
most of us had 6 in the game.
6,
We
5, and
ended
4.
at -5.
I had 5 backwards.
Yeah.
I have a question actually for the Camarilla Toreador and for Marion. Marion was part of the Camarilla for a very long time. How do you think you guys ever got along?
I wish I got to guest on the Camarilla game. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, I kind of wish Celine, because there was some things that we did agree on, taking the Toreador in a different direction, and so she started to feel that after when she stayed and stuff. Yeah, and but as for in the past, Celine would have never openly hated him.
That's the Celine answer. That's the most Celine answer.
Just secretly hated.
I think in terms of like Alexander, he's not one to hate people except for Elizabeth, which has changed also. But I think because of his relationship with Elizabeth, he wouldn't have tried to make connections within Toreador. So it would be like friendly acquaintance at best, but not somebody, like, he wouldn't necessarily pursue a strong relationship with other Toreadors aside from Celine, who was in his coterie.
Yeah, for Marion, he's always been kind of aloof from all the clan stuff. Like I kept saying throughout the game, although you kept making me have the right role manipulate for it, but I was like, I haven't talked to my sire in a while. Seriously, Sergey, and I don't usually interact, and I had kind of stayed back from a lot of those politics.
Just enough. It was just enough, though.
Yeah, I still occasionally kept in contact, but yeah, it was because I set up my shop far away from Hollywood and tried to be with more of the mortals, and that's how I even got into Anarch in the first place, was doing that. So I think I kept my distance from a lot of the Toreador, but if any of them were less on the snooty side, he would have been up about it.
So cool with Alexander, not so sure about Celine.
Yeah, that would probably, yeah.
Happy dirty Teddy.
But I hate Celine as a person. I hate she is terrible.
God, they would fucking suck.
Totally agree.
Okay, so we got another question for an NPC. So I'll give this one for Throg because it's for a Camarilla related one. Question for Radiant.
What?
Why are you so mad?
Why are you so mad? What's up with that? Okay. So written into the game is this idea of increased paranoia during the height of World War II. We're just at the point in June, July 1943 when the war is starting to turn in the Allies' favor. So people are still freaking out, right? There's still a lot of, are the Japanese going to invade? Are there secret submarines outside Los Angeles? Are there spies running around everywhere, right? We're not at, the peak winning of the Allies yet. And so Radiant was extra susceptible to these forms of dyscrasia. So if you've read V5, you know dyscrasia are these kind of extreme tweak moments within a human psyche where they're super freaked out, and they realized, yes?
Dyscrasia.
Dyscrasia, sure, dyscrasia. And
just want to help.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
By the way, Camarilla. That's for everybody here.
Okay.
Camarilla.
All right.
However you say it. Sorry?
Camarilla.
Camarilla.
It's Camarilla. And by the way, the Kidney Thieves pronounced it Dyscrasia, and they've got a published song. So, I mean, I don't know. who are you going to believe?
Says the English teacher.
You know.
Sorry.
Can Throck talk?
Sorry, Throck.
Radiant was farming humans with dyscrasia. Humans with dyscrasia in order to attempt to get additional breakthroughs in their disciplines. And it drove them insane. And that's why they were so mad. Yes, and it's pronounced tortilla, indeed. And that's why it drove them insane over time. They became more and more paranoid. Because you can spontaneously, according to V5, and I love all this resonance stuff, right? And so I wanted to find a way to bring it in without necessarily getting in the way of any of the players' agency. And so I thought having an NPC who was experimenting with it in the background and trying to use it to empower themselves would be an interesting way to do it. And so that's why Radiant was so mad, is they were experimenting with incredibly intensely emotional people, and it drove them crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's if you put yourself in a situation where you're around people who are on level 10 all the time, you're going to slowly creep up to that level around those people. That makes sense. I like the resonance. I hate how little it came up.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and I think Sol was right about this as well. I think in a game that is focused on a single coterie over a longer period of time, things like resonance and feeding become these story beats that are important to the growth of the characters. Yeah. And when we put ourselves in a very specific box, and so some of the pieces of that sadly had to fall away. I think we still told a compelling story. It just didn't include every note that V5 has written in it.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, if I were to sort of amend my rant from earlier slightly to soften it somewhat. If I were to run a V5 game from the ground up, then I think that some of these parts of it do make some sense within the structure of the rule set. I wouldn't try to make it fit into the old WoD lore. It would have to be its own new thing. But I think that doing that would allow some of these other parts of it to make more sense. Because I think it's when you try to kind of mash them together, that's when you come into all this conflict between like the world and the rules. So. What are you trying to say about me there, Kelt?
That you're a monster.
Apparently.
Mildly.
I didn't know we were supposed to have flashcards. I didn't have anything. I was feeling left out.
It flew.
Entirely Conry's fault.
Yeah,
it's backwards. I can't read that.
Backwards.
So V5 is very much focused on feeding. Like it's supposed to be a really big thing. And if you have a longer game, it does make more sense. But because we run in like seasons for this one, it's like on a TV show. Like that people go to the bathroom, but they don't spend time showing it. And V5 is except on some, but V5 is
a great metaphor.
Is V5 is on the feeding aspect. They wanted it, I think, to be a much bigger deal, and that makes sense. It's just harder to do in a shorter period of time.
Look how many cards Conry has. He's got like he's like got a poker hand down there.
What does it say?
All right, I haven't mirrored myself, so.
It's my mirroring issue right now as well.
The great. This question goes to Ivan. Does Ivan truly consider himself to be holy?
Yeah.
Entirely so. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Ivan is an utterly monomaniacal, egotistical nightmare. He thinks that he's the greatest goddamn thing on the fucking planet.
Wait, so
No doubt.
Ivan equal Calvin?
No, but see, one of us can actually like carry through with it.
Sebastian would strongly agree.
See? 2 on 1.
Yep.
I'm not in this fight. I don't care.
No, but Ivan, and then this didn't come up.
Somebody gave Eddie poster board. He just upped the whole like card ante. What was your card? Hold your card up again. Oh, okay.
It was a trick I played.
It looked a lot bigger from the back.
Yeah,
Look at how big it is. It's like my whole house.
It's all about the angle.
Oh, in the corner it says, "Why you mad?"
Why are you mad?
Why are you mad? And he's drooling.
And now we're Facebook because I really like that.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Ivan's whole thing is like was raised as a priest and an artist, and like so that deep-seated belief just carried through. And another one of those background things was Ivan was originally ghouled by a Camarilla Toreador and then was poached by a Zenitsi.
I want to discover this in Sabat 66. I don't want to hear this now.
You heard
I want to
nothing.
discover it.
We heard this in character creation, man.
Well, I forgot. But I want to find out. I want Eddie to
2 weeks, it's fine.
The good way to make sure everything stays fresh is if you just never pay that much attention.
Yeah.
You're always surprised.
I'm always pleasantly surprised all the time.
No, basically, Ivan took that deep-seated true faith and just it went beep a little bit to like refocus on Ivan being yep, thank you, towards being, and that's why he shows up as a seraphim because that is as close to God as you can get without being God in certain faiths. So, yeah. Next step, God. That was that whole thing with Eddie.
I'll help you get there, buddy.
Punch on the
For those in the audience who maybe aren't privy to all the Sabbat chats, there was literally a conversation between them trying to game out how they would kill God. Like in the Sabbat backstage chat. Yeah, like they were like from a strategic aspect. How do you kill God? It was. Wow.
God, I'm just gonna love Nietzsche.
Jump on him. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, he killed God. Just wait for 66. It'll be awesome.
We're not killing God.
Can you Diablerize him?
We shall see.
DBZ, did you see my question that I posted in chat?
Let me see. I don't think
it's an important question.
Yep, sure is.
Yep,
very important question.
Oh, what is the actual death count from the fire at the party?
It matters.
What was it?
I need exact numbers.
It was in the script for the radio address, wasn't it?
No, it was covered up. Supposedly the Camarilla covered it up, so we didn't get to know.
Yeah, so we didn't get the
it was 8 civilians, I believe.
Yes.
What? Yeah.
8?
Because it was a house with a lot of ways out, and the party was already dying down, and the fire started in the middle.
You blew up 20 people at once.
Yeah, by yourself.
Yeah, this matters because Isaac is trying to figure out the final kill count for the Sabbat. He's been tallying.
Well, you also have to take into consideration all the shovel heads that we made.
Does that count?
You also have to take into consideration.
Well, they then died.
The werewolves. Don't forget the werewolves. So
yeah, that's true.
So I will have the final kill count posted at some point.
12 werewolves.
Like, so we had a Google sheet that was our shared notes for the games. Because
and at the very top of it.
At the very top is death count. And then it's our code for fighting combat.
Is a Sabbat game just like a Call of Duty deathmatch?
It was.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It was actually
cool games where we did
running riot.
Yeah, it was,
high KDS.
It would be like philosophy game, conversation and prep game. Oh my God, kill everything. And philosophy game, conversation and prep game. Oh my God, kill all the rest of the things.
Yeah, we would prep a lot though. Like before.
Oh yeah.
You would.
Because from what I didn't understand when I made my character was that I didn't fully understand what the Sabbat were, and that the Sabbat was like, yeah, you're basically like the shitty front lines you run in and you die all the time. And I was like, fuck that. I just my character. We're not dying. So like, when it came down to like tactically thinking about something, I was like, oh, let's get down to business. And Ivan was right there with me, like, you know what I mean? With like, oh yeah, fuck that shit. We're gonna live. Like, go die for
We
Kate.
got to the point where we were talking so much in the chat that was made with the STs. I made us a separate chat just so we could like figure out what we actually wanted to do, so that we could propose to the STs the thing we actually wanted to do.
Yeah, our private chat was
there were
basically-
days where we had like 400 chat messages between us.
It was just ideas.
I love y'all STs, but we spared you so much.
We appreciate it.
It's a lot of
When
garbage.
I had first told Throck about it, and he was like, why would you do that? And I'm like, to save you.
Yeah. It was a lot
To
of
save you. Oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie, I muted you guys. Like,
Meanwhile, in the Anarch game, we were like, so I guess we're going to the Torador Claim meeting, huh? Yeah, I guess so. We'll just walk right to the door. But we'll ask the Bruja to come too.
So just a little back behind the curtain kind of thing. I will say in the order of most active chats, it was always the Sabbat reigning supreme with an ungodly amount of notifications, and then followed by probably the Camarilla, then the Anarchs.
Although it felt like the Anarchs had a really good teamwork setup.
Yes.
The Anarchs, every time that they were in game together, I always got the sense that they were very much on the same page with things. And that they understood each other's characters quite well, and they were all sort of like unified. Like out of the groups, I think that the Anarchs had probably the least like inter-party contention. It felt like.
It's the most Anarch thing too, to be honest.
But I think it was especially apparent, like in that last in the finale, for example, they basically did this like stealth raid on Don Sebastian's compound, and without like if that were the Sabat game, it would have been Eddie like for 5 minutes or 10 minutes first, like sort of explaining to everyone, all right, here's the game plan. But for the Anarchs, it was just like Delta Squad, like they just kind of went in stealthily, and they each knew their shit really well, and they just sort of like rolled in like a fucking fog. It was great.
That's what Eddie was
like
trying to
How
make.
I don't know, how'd the Anarch coterie feel about that? Was that accurate?
I'd say we were very stream of consciousness.
I'm sorry.
Say that again, Connery. You were a little low.
I was saying that we were pretty much very stream of consciousness the way we were playing, or at least that's the way I was playing. I don't know about you guys. We were just kind of rolling with it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we have these allies. Jamie's here. He also has unerring aim. Let's just see if we can shoot him.
I still did not expect that double critical.
Oh, so
I felt
good.
like you guys knew a little more inherently like the balance between the things you were doing. Whereas I think for us, it was because we had some of these additional weird disciplines coming into play, we had to go, but how do we use this together?
No, not necessarily. What I think, one, I didn't expect like Don Sebastian to be down and be caught off guard. I was like, damn, motherfuckers! All right, yeah, you also, you went hard, but it's it's also the most kind of, and Connery or anybody correct me if it's wrong. It's like the Anarch Free States are chaos, like engulfed until something comes in to fuck with them, and it's like, all right, we're unified. Let's take him down. All right, back to chaos. Okay, Quajin back. Let's go in, take him out. Okay.
Yeah,
we're chaos again. All right, Sabater here, come in, take him out. Like,
I'll just say, before the finale, I had 32 experience points to spend, and I had a grudge. So I spent.
Also, Dante knew everything.
Yes,
like,
he did.
He knew everything. He just bestial feared so much, he was never able to like get it out. Yeah. No, he was like, hey, I wanted to do all of this, and then like plus whatever the other coteries were working on. I'm like, all right, that's like a +9. That's like a +9 success. And I was like, all right, go roll for it and roll 20 because he had a family emergency. Critical hit, 10 successes. And I was like, well, fuck, you finished everything you wanted on the list. Like, so it's like, I was like, yeah, you know where the Sabat's headquarters are, you know where, and I'm talking about this coteries headquarters who are here.
So did the whole city, pretty much.
Yeah, he knew the whole city. He knew about,
didn't give a fuck.
he knew about the TB and everything. And no, he did give a fuck, and it came in handy for the Anarchs and the SPCs there. But, which is why it never really affected them because of Dante being like, all right, well, because of his family emergency, he's like, I'm going to let, the head Anarchs know. And he's like, cool, we'll stay clear. And they just kind of did their whole thing as like Dante's like behind the scenes, which is like kind of perfect for Nosferatu with a mission.
Like, the way I was going about it too.
I know what Dante was doing so badly that whole time. Oh my God.
the way I thought about it while we were planning it, with when we got those big info dumps and we had to do those like, okay, what are we doing moments, we tended to do it in character, in game. And because the Anarchs are supposed to be this new faction really trying to finally come together in California, I thought we'd play kind of the third wheel, because the Camarilla and the Sabat have been fighting since the first Anarch revolt. So most of our decision making was like, how could we make the most out of each one fucking with the other? So like, the Sabat are here to fuck with the Camarilla. Well, that makes the Camarilla weaker. Fantastic. Well, the Camarilla are fighting back against the Sabat. That means we'll have to clean up less later. It just kept on being. It kept on being a. We were trying to play the faction game a little harder than what I think people realize for what we're going for.
I thought
Well,
we'd be
I know
full
that
espionage.
We were doing that as well, or we were trying to do that as well. I think the only people who weren't allowed to do that as much were the Camarilla, because they were forced to actually deal with their own stuff.
Yeah, definitely trying to balance the factions.
Yeah, definitely trying, but like they just had so much stuff. Our main objective is screw you over. Your main objective was don't let your own NPCs and allies screw you over.
Yeah, it was.
We were able to focus on messing with you, whereas you had a bunch of stuff you had to deal with on top of us showing up.
What was the Camarilla's main mission, you think, for this coterie? Survive?
Survive.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, it was to survive. If they in some way had found a way to A, convince Landerhaven to stay, B, hold the coteries together, we may be having a different conversation about how things came around, but their story didn't go in that direction. And I just took a lot of direction from kind of, I gave them some scenarios and then we just kind of let them unravel as the players unraveled them, and they didn't happen in that direction. They heard all these seeds as it was happening, but we're doing a lot of their own business along the way. And so I thought it was a great personal story. It didn't link into the politics as much as it could have, but I think that's okay.
I think it turned out awesome, especially when like on paper, if I were to look at all three of the games, and I'm like, all right, the Anarch one is going to be about like these badasses taking the city and fucking over the power structure. Cool. There's nothing to hate about that. The Sabbat, I love horror. It's like, here's a bunch of crazy monster people coming into the city to like, let's kill everyone. I'm like, cool, I'm going to have a great time. It's a Pulp Fiction movie. And then, but the Camarilla was like the one that I was like, how is that? Is that even going to be like interesting or fun? But it was fucking awesome. Like it was so interesting in like a totally different way. Like I think all three of the games were really different because obviously we had different missions, but like because of all the players and all the choices that they made, your guys' game was cool. It was way more interesting than I thought it was going to be. You know, no offense to you guys making the games, but like it just didn't sound like my cup of tea. But watching it, I was like, oh man, this is cool. Like I like this. You know what I mean?
The Camarilla game, especially the coterie, like props to Kevin, Silly, Nerdy, and M and Silas and Leona who aren't here. But like it was probably
playing off of the others in it was it made everyone better.
Like especially when Celine was like, I know this isn't a good time.
I poke a lot of fun about the Camarilla game being meetings that could have been an email, the game. But know that is just me poking fun. It was a genuinely sweet game to watch. The players were really cool in their interactions. And what I really did like is, so with the Sabbat, like you have a lot of people who they're tied together through this vinculum ritual that makes them all like each other. So even if they have like philosophical differences, at the end of the day they're still tied together. The Camarilla doesn't have that. And the Camarilla game, I felt really exemplified that difference between the two, of like this fractious, contentious relationship between them, and having to actually balance some of these problems that they had. And man, the shade that you guys would throw at each other,
it was
from week to week was phenomenal.
But that's the thing from my perspective. Like when we did LARPs, the sex would exist in the same place. Like we could walk from place to place and actually interact with each other. We didn't have as much of that. So like, but actually getting to see the true interaction of the Camarilla without sitting in the room and getting to see these players' dynamics and actually like see the characters and their disagreements and stuff, like this was possibly the best Camarilla that I've ever personally seen and witnessed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We all shit on the Camarilla, but like
that's the fun of it.
No,
Well,
it's
there's such easy
the problem with the Camarilla is often their games get portrayed with princes who are stooges.
Yeah.
And like just weak, backstabbing political people, which is part of the fun of a Camarilla game. But like a strong leader as a Camarilla prince, that's a fucking scary thing. like it's like you combined, like a hardcore sort of like, I'm trying to think of a good Cambria prince now, Mithras. Like, that guy's fucking terrifying when you actually think about it.
Yeah.
And so when Throck added Landerhaven in there, I was like, oh, thank God we're not just going to have Don Sebastian off the bat.
Yeah.
I need to know. What the fuck was Rojas?
Oh.
It's been killing me since episode 1. I never got any answers because Regina Wynn died.
Yeah, I was
Also
disappointed at that.
Been driving me nuts.
Why am I forgetting this?
Okay,
Rojas
so
was... Yeah.
would you like to know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
5 words or less.
Oh boy.
Rojas was a Setite.
I knew that.
Okay. Oh, do you really want to know? So there is a full clutch of Setites in the city. There aren't just 2.
Never
Because
just 2.
Yeah, there are never
No.
just 2. So Rojas is actually he's not an elder per se, but he is a muckety kind of a muckety muck within the Setites. He's one of I call them a clutch. I can't remember what they're actually called, like what a group of Setites are called.
A nest, probably. They're all
probably
snakes.
a nest. Yeah, he kind of leads the nest, but has a bit of a death wish, and so
crack
wanted
house
to
of
be
Setites.
there when the body was delivered to see what happened.
But how
and
did he know the body was going to be delivered?
He delivered it.
Oh, okay. But he
Yeah.
needed to stick around because he's that
he was compelled. He felt compelled to stick around. Yeah, and watch what happened.
There's oh god.
Yeah, there's like 8 of them.
And then I love when we finally announced the Ass
Did not interact with that at all.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Yeah. Yeah. There were 2 Assamites in town. There were like 8 Setites. None of it ever came up. It's cool. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Question about that, actually.
Jesus.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Right. Oh, okay. So I did get a question in chat. What did the right hand end up doing that made them busy during I guess is it our fight, Portia? Or is it our fight?
When we went to Dalewood.
Oh.
They jerked
So-
off.
So, so if you want, okay, do you want the in-game reason, or I'll just give you both. The in-game reason is that they got waylaid by some of the extra werewolves and just never made it there. The actual reason is that I wanted to hold back some of the Sabat NPCs to offer up to the other STs in case they wanted to use them. So that, because I didn't know exactly what direction everybody was going to take with their finales, and since we'd sort of put the kibosh on, or not the kibosh, but like we made it very, very difficult for there to be inter-party combat. I wanted there to be some Sabat NPCs available for the other finales in case that was the direction that the players in those games chose to go. So that if they wanted to take down like Conrad or Mitzi or Cowboy, that they would have that opportunity available because they wouldn't be tied up in whatever you guys were doing.
And that was my theory. And like, this is the advantage of being married to one of the STs. Like, I got the explanation of in case anybody else wants them, but I wanted to see, like, was there an explanation laid out? Because I didn't know.
By the way, that's literally the only advantage. The other STs can vouch for the fact that when we were having ST meetings, I made her close her eyes and cover her ears and go la 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 as she walked past me.
Yes. Yes, that happened.
So just a thing for Eddie. It's basically Conrad's fault that Isaac died then.
Actually, kind of.
Yeah.
Listen, I actually didn't I didn't plan on disliking Conrad. I found a thing on the sheet called adversary, which means someone who wants you fucking dead. Like, from what I read on the thing, it's like someone who will stop at nothing to kill you, hunt you down. So I expected like an assassin, someone who's coming to beat my ass. And then I basically, Zed goes, yeah, your guy is Conrad Heller. I'm like, all right, cool. I meet him, and it's like, yeah, he's just you, but better. I'm like, fucking fuck him. Like, you know, he's like literally like everything that you do.
Got all these huge things that are terrifying and scary, and
But like he just does it better, like all the time. It's like fuck that guy. Like in game, Eddie doesn't give a doesn't hate anybody. He just doesn't hate people. But that I hated that. I hate it. Evan hates Conrad. We hated the right hand on basic fucking principle. We were fully ready to wipe them out.
I still want them dead.
No problem. We still kind of wanted to kill them. If actually at the end game, I expected them to be who we were going to take down, not Von.
Don Sebastian.
There was a period where that was something that I figured you guys might do, but then the opportunity basically, like, you guys kept making jokes about Dalewood, and then it just kind of snowballed.
We memed Dalewood into existence, into becoming our finale.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
I like
Madrid with 3,600 calories of life-giving energy.
So we were memeing about it, though. We said we would firebomb it with Molotov cocktails. In the end, it got mortared, exploded with a tank.
And it had margarine lava.
Yeah,
margarine lava was the best. Was my personal favorite element of it.
I love
that's how we killed Von fucking Lindy. We pushed him into margarine lava. Fuck him.
Literally,
That's Carrick. We didn't like him anyway.
Pinned him down and said, nope.
Von Lindy was killed by butter.
Yeah, he died by butter.
Yeah,
I love that scene. That was amazing.
Whatever cool shit he had done in his hundreds of years of life, I don't know how old he was. No matter what badass things, he died in butter. With a flaming Nosferatu on him, just screaming at him.
And a really terrifying Zamitzi.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the questions.
Yeah.
This has been a fun rant. Let's get back to people asking questions.
So this one's directed for Redcap. I know we already had our finale, but this was sent right before the finale. Would Redcap have stayed in the city after it was free, speaking LA, or would Redcap have gone to free other ones under Camarilla control?
He never really, his purpose was never really to free anything. It just, he ended up in LA, and seeing all the crap go down that led him to have to leave New York in the first place. I mean, he's if you look at his whole history, he's kind of a perpetual immigrant. He had to leave Ireland because of the Black 47, the potato famine. He ended up in New York. He ended up having to leave New York after he was told how much he didn't belong in New York during the whole the Irish immigration phase, and the Irish need not apply, and then you had and then the war, and then the Civil War happened, and he was told he had to go fight and die in a war that he wasn't even, around for the inception of. And then he went to another place, got screwed over there in the early formation of the mafia there, and then he had to fucking leave that, and he ended up out in LA. So I think that as soon as, part of his final thing was, this is the first time he's won one, so to speak. He can't beat the famine. He couldn't beat the other gangs or the racists in the nationalists, in the nativists. Sorry, that's what they referred to be called in New York. He couldn't beat the burgeoning mafia in Chicago that ended up getting him kicked out of there. And he couldn't this was the first time in his entire existence, his almost 100 years of existence, that he actually won one. And he didn't know how to process that. So he did what he normally does. Everything's over, I'm leaving. And he moved on to another location, and it wasn't really about, going from city to city, saving them from the grips of the Camarilla. It was more like, this happens to me, I'll find another place to sit down.
I like it though, because he doesn't it's not like he turns away from shit. Obviously, I like a good fight and gangrel and all that shit, but it's like he is, at the end of the day, despite the moral ambiguity, a good person who does good things or tries to do the right thing in a way. From what I saw, where it's like, but these guys are being dicks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like them. Not so much like you're saying free the, but it's like in the face of true tyranny, like Don Sebastian. It's like, oh no, fuck that guy. Fuck this guy. It's not like this isn't my fight. I'm leaving. You stayed to fight and then left. You know what I mean? I like that. That's pretty cool. Like, I'm gonna fuck this guy up before I go though. Like, you know what I mean?
The only reason he left the other cities was because he lost those fights. It wasn't that he didn't try to fight or he was fleeing to get away. It was I've lost this fight. I'm gonna die if I stick around. Okay, I guess I'm gone. And now he gets into LA and this whole fucking story unfolds. And in a way, he probably the thing that probably made him absolutely be like, no, I'll move on to the next one was probably the fact that he did have a loss. He did lose. He lost Dante. And again, this is the first time he had a coterie, proper since he first was made back in New York. And it reminded him of the gangs. And then, he loses another one. So it was just like another, stick around long enough to give him the proper Irish wake and then, hit the road, see where Unlife takes you next.
Eli? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I actually had a quick question. Can you show us again your fighting stance?
Oh.
Thank you.
Cool. It looks like Eli had something to say.
It's not as drastic. It's a proper, but it came from somewhere.
No, what I had was from the last topic, so I'm good.
Oh,
okay. I just had a question about the Sabbat we fought. If it was the right hand or if it was just some rogue Sabbat.
What was that I drank?
Yeah. Who's squirming around in Cap's insides?
It's probably the worst part of the Zamitsi clan. So the worst part of the Sabbat, but I don't know. Again, that entire arc. Well, I mean, the Zamitsi have their sense of honor. It's just twisted as shit. But he was trying to explain that. But you guys were just like, no, fuck this guy. So
people curtains.
Yeah, exactly. Cathedrals of flesh, not good.
But they're so lovely.
Yeah.
Was there stained glass?
Properly are gross.
That's why we wanted to meet Marion.
Like, seriously, was there iconography?
No.
Was there, like, beautiful, like, ritual tapestry? Come on.
Like,
it was like Freddy
Don't
Krueger's
do it half-ass.
Done properly.
Ugh.
Anyway,
homes and flesh crafting.
No, you have to remember that second arc just came from the second arc that I had prepared, kind of getting thrown out the window. So that Zamitsi just sort of, I guess it could have been part of the right hand. It's just something we never really cleared up.
We sort of kind of went back and explained it as having been a rogue agent.
Yeah, a rogue agent, I guess.
Kind of feel more too.
Yeah, I mean, so the Sabbat are very big on freedom, right? So, like, yes, there is a Sabbat structure, and the Sabbat, like, who are within that structure, like, take orders and go and do what they're told. And in the end, all Sabbat are all about, like, the overall mission in some way or another. But there are those who just kind of go where they like. And so I think we'd sort of determined that one that you guys dealt with was somebody who had, and I don't think we pinned it down, but either was there for a long time beforehand and just happened to still be there, or who
I think that's what we landed on. Actually,
I believe that
it sounds familiar. Yeah,
like it was someone who was already there, who wasn't like really plugged into the Sabbat community necessarily, so much as they were like an older style Samisi who wanted to like have their little fiefdom and have that be their fiefdom.
Yeah, I think that does sound right, because I understand. My main problem with the Sabbat is they're so fucking loud. Like I'm not talking about this coterie, but they make
on purpose.
No. That exactly. That's the entire problem with the Sabbat is they make so much goddamn noise across the entirety of a city. That's like, how is nobody ever going to pick this up? So I wanted kind of to have a Sabbat who played it patiently and smart. for them to have a chance of like, you could kind of see this guy, if he never got caught, probably could have won. Like, but it's Requiem lore, yeah, superior. And so I think we landed on him just being rogue, not right hand.
Okay, I think I've got to get going. So.
Thank you for hanging out with us, Shogun.
Bye, Shogun. You're great.
4 boxes will be uneven.
Yes, the boxing will be uneven. But I will be in Berlin 66. I have a Malkavian written up already.
Because there are actually Malkavians in V20.
Yes, I actually get dementation for reals this time.
Way. Not the amalgam power because they didn't like it.
Yeah. And so my thought for that character is basically we're in Berlin during the Cold War where there are spies everywhere. So why don't I make a character who is paranoid?
Oh, it's so good. I love the concept so much. Oh my God.
So good.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much, Shogun.
And 12-sided guy, I don't know if I'm psychic, but apparently I'm good tonight. So
and so we have a question for this one. This one is a question actually for relating to Calvin. What is the full story behind Calvin hiding Don Sebastian's money?
Calvin's good at money, and Toreadors are famously not.
I do okay.
You do okay because of me.
Keep thinking back.
Yeah, I do. But it was this thing where Calvin was kind of the guy they would bring in to adjust some finances. He was a financier before he was a producer. And he had always been a diplomat, but he was good with money as well. And like he'd be sent places to go and clean up some finances or to plan ahead for the future. And as the war started to pick up, Calvin would have started hiding money around LA with American banknotes and Swiss notes and physical money just in case.
I thought he was a Broadway guy.
He was a Broadway guy, but even before then, he was finance. He financed Broadway. Well,
he made Broadway.
No, he didn't do that. That's
he broadened the way.
Funded a few theaters here and there.
I don't like it. I don't like your puns.
He started stashing gold and Swiss francs all over just in case.
So many Gangrel have gotten rich off of his hard work.
You dig up the right.
Oh shit! Cool.
So wait, bye, Marion.
Yeah.
Marion.
Did he?
Yeah, he left.
Yeah, he had to leave. So this one is, I guess, this question would be directed kind of towards Zed, but also to, I guess, the STs in general. For the Sabbat, who were some potential allies that they could have gotten, but that they never found out about?
Regina fucking Wynn.
I mean, she was an ally of sorts. She empowered us. She empowered Rock.
Yeah, she knew where you guys were.
She
She knew that was Zed, but because of Jumi's character, she was just like, I'm going to hold off. I want to see what she's all about. You guys just killed her.
You had the chance to like really
Wait, she actually has a really good reason for why.
He does.
That's true. Go back.
Why did you kill Regina Wynn instead of hearing her out when she was saying that she was going to get you?
Because she waited for my back to be turned, and then she stabbed me in the back. She didn't talk to me.
But why else? When you told me, you said it was also because...
Oh. All right, hold on. I can't do it.
Because there was a good chance that I could have gone a different direction. Roxy's not fully allied with the Sabbat.
Oh.
So if she would have approached her in a different way, then it could have gone a different way. And I very well could have left the Sabbat. spoilers.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
To answer that question from a different direction, so there ended up being a whole conversation about like what pieces of information were clear and which ones weren't, which ones were actionable, which ones weren't. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we did. So the initial plan for the Sabbat was that they would come into the city and very quietly eat their way to the top. And so that they would like take out all the Camarilla's infrastructure by going after all their influences. And this method was one that, and this is an ST learning moment, and I've been storytelling for much longer than I'm going to say right now, but even still, mistakes can be made, and so like I wasn't making some of the information as clear as I would have liked, and we ended up correcting a lot of that. But because the game works on a timeline, we couldn't just like then take the amount of time necessary to go through that, that slow, drawn out process that I'd originally sort of speculated. So the original plan was that they were going to like, for example, the Boeing executive, the party that you guys went to, like that guy was going to lead you into both industry and military influences, which were then going to lead you into police and political backgrounds. And the idea was that you were going to sort of slowly work your way through the Camarilla influence web until you had like either had the influence or had destroyed enough influence that you had crippled the Sabbat's power structure or the Camarilla's power structure, that you could pull them out into the open and then just start feasting. And that didn't quite work out that way. But so that was really from a like a missed allies perspective. That's really kind of where it was like all the possible influences that were sort of free floating. The other guy was Big Tony, was supposed to be an inroad to underworld influence, and there was a few other threads here and there as well. I don't think that you guys missed out on anything else. Ming was about as much of an ally as Ming was probably ever going to be. And
I wanted to be best friends.
I know. Sending Ming gifts.
Tried so hard.
I have a Throck. Is there anybody else?
I don't have anything there. No.
Yeah.
No, because Radiant would have killed him.
Oh yeah.
Well,
No,
yeah, Radiant was definitely all anti-Sabbat for the way that they were supposed to be.
Sable has 3 dots as enemy Sabbat, so
yeah, the Camarilla weren't going to be like friendly with the Sabbat.
yeah,
So
no, they
yeah,
weren't
yeah.
ever. The Sabbat were kind of on their own, to be honest.
That was kind of
I mean,
the point of us.
that's like that was kind of how we understood it was going to. That's what I thought it was going to be when we came.
I
didn't expect it.
I do have a question for the 2 Nosferatu. If they would have come along, if Dante would have been able to talk to Roxy, do you think she would have converted to a different cause or a more clan independent route?
So
Dante, how would you convince her?
So I'll say this off first. So Roxy is all about herself and self-preservation. So if the Anarchs presented her a actual, with proof that she would be better off on their side than the Sabbat, then yeah, she would have definitely
But we fucking annihilated.
jumped sides. So how would he try to sway her?
Actually, on that there, Dante was at a point because of the way his mentor sire was slaughtered by the Camarilla. He could have potentially been easily swayed to go Sabbat.
Shit.
Morally
Yeah.
ambiguous Nosferatu.
Yes.
Because the way
In
Dante,
line.
yeah, I mean, Dante was sired in a very vengeful situation because the one thing I tried to do, but I wasn't able to, but Dante was actually a Hispanic within LA. And he was like a third generation, and he was part of the street gangs that actually protected the Hispanic population from the outsiders from coming in there too much. He was converted by a German sympathist that had come over to cause problems for the Americans. So that's why when Landerhaven torched 2 people for Dante, it was the German sympathizer, which was the Nosferatu, but then the second one was actually a Malkavian that found Dante the night he was turned and actually began to teach him, but didn't fully bring him into the fold of things. So he was actually at that point where he knew of the Camarilla. He kind of expected to go into it more, but didn't because of the way he was withheld.
Can I just say, by the way, during that moment where you were just like revealing everything, and Connery was just like,
You
to
should
the
have
prince
more at the all thing, man.
Yeah.
For the Sabat shit, you should have been like, "Hey, so what are you all about? Like, what's your?"
when I knew immediately. I was like, Redcap, can you go over and fetch Dr. Cross for me?
Yeah.
He was like, you two can stay here. I was like, this is the prince I want to play. The one who's not full of themselves.
Yep. So it was a learning curve for Dante because he had never really, because he still had a lot of ties within the community because he had a guardian archetype to him where he actually stayed over and watched over a lot of the community to continue to protect it as the Nosferatu. But when it was all said and done, he realized that he needed to change because the information he was giving out put his entire family in danger. And it was a quick learning moment in which you almost saw a dynamic change in Dante at that point when Landerhaven threatened his family if I didn't fall in line right then and there.
And that was the thing, that moment in the Anarch game when it was threatening both Dante and Eli's living families. Like, it felt so dark from a prince who's very much of the idea of like, we do this, you know, like a good prince from a Camarilla standpoint of like what you want to see in a prince.
Yeah.
Going that dark to just be like, I don't know if I can trust you, so I'm going to threaten the thing that feels like it means the most to you.
Yeah. And that's why if Dante had actually ran into the Camarilla and had learned of Adra's relationship to Landerhaven, he could have potentially sought his revenge and tried to drop her there on sight.
Awesome.
You killed one of mine, I killed one of yours. Boom, we're settled.
Would have been a fight.
It would have been. It would have really been interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh,
so,
Redcap just standing behind him. No, don't stop.
Stop! Don't.
Oh, the humanity.
Oh, the humanity that we're supposed to have.
Barf.
Celts, do you see the question you got asked?
We'll get to there.
So this one is to Celts. As a brand new player to Vampire the Masquerade, what parts of the different factions intrigue you the most? And would you have preferred to try a different faction considering all the archetypes of the factions?
So, if I understand that correctly, like, you know, the whole when you're new to tabletop RPGs, you kind of gravitate towards making characters you see most relatable to. So that's kind of what I did with Eli. The whole rebellious Bruja thing spoke to me from the very, very beginning. Like, I don't even think I read into the other ones. As soon as I read the Bruja, little snippet, I was just like, oh yeah, this is it right here.
Yep.
I think there's a one of the examples in that Bruja text is like the guy in the basement downloading movies to stick it to the man or something. There's like some kind of that I was just like, holy shit, that was me in my 20s. Like you know what I mean? Like so the Bruja thing spoke to me a lot. My backup character was going to be Malkavian. And I know people are like, oh, you got to be careful with Malkavians, but I liked the idea that the Malkavians are almost sought after for child, because like if they have like the sixth sense or some kind of like psychic mediums and stuff like that, and I had a really cool idea for like a 30s like carnival fortune teller that got trained, you know, that got embraced, and his thing was going to be that he could hear the voices of the dead.
That's cool.
Yeah, nice.
That was going to be his, you know, like kind of like I was going to play like a social awkwardness, kind of like where I saw no problems talking to these dead people where no one else could hear what was going on, and they would say inappropriate shit. And you'd only hear like half the conversation. Like that was going to be my kind of madness for a little bit, you know, like, no, his beard's fine. He doesn't have shit in his beard, you know, like rude shit like that was coming from spirits talking. So, but yeah, I mean, Bruja from the get go for sure, and then yeah, like the Malkavians, and I'm slowly but surely getting into more of the lore, and the Sabbat stuff is just very, very cool. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I actually, after the Gangrel thing, when you gave me the book, I wish that I had known of. I read a little bit into the Sabbat, but not as much as I really should have. I read as much as Eddie needed, but I wish I knew about the Code of Milan, and I wish I had it on me, because when you gave me the Book of the Anarchs, I was like, fuck, do we have like a pamphlet or some shit? Like, do the Sabbat, like, do I have a skin flap from some innocent
I actually made jokes in your guys' chat about you guys having pamphlets and shit.
Yeah.
It's always been on the back burner of my mind, that, and there for a minute I kind of went like, well, I might just go Sabbat, fuck you guys.
So what I had planned to do, again, if we had more time, this literally the next session was the end, but I had wrote out, I actually have it like half written out, but I went online and I looked up the Code of Milan, and I looked up I found out about all these paths, the nightly nonsense and all the fucking like regal shit and all the crazy shit that they're into and all the different ways you can be Sabbat. And I was basically writing, I was going to send Eddie was going to send Eli a code of like a Book of Milan, but it was Eddie's version, and he had crossed out a bunch of shit and wrote a bunch of shit in the margins, like the whole like only God can choose these guys, and he crosses out God, and he's like bullshit. Here's this, here's that, like, you know, basically like how Eddie sees and lives in the Sabbat, and how he has altered the Sabbat's like philosophies to suit his needs, and he was going to send it to you because he kind of saw like a very similar sort of creature, you know what I mean? A brutal creature that feels almost a little restrained in the world. And
okay,
that's
so now I want to see, like we already said, I want to see an Ivan and Calvin buddy cop movie, but I also badly want to see an Eddie and Eli buddy cop.
Yes. I think they could get along. Like the only issues is the absolute, like, you look like you're like, all right, I take out people that are scumbags. Like I saw that in one of the things, and then Smiling Jack got all pissy about it, and that was like something that Eddie would be like, nah bro, just do it do it all the time, I don't care. Like, awesome, yeah, fuck him up, cool. Like, this is fun. Like, you know what I mean? But I think that would be really fun. I think that would be an awesome
just thing. All kinds of chaos bodies.
Oh yeah, and I had thought that it would be neat if like in game I can send you, Celts, the actual thing that I was writing, and
okay.
It could almost be like after we left the city, Eddie was like, hey, make sure this finds its way to, you know, a Bruja named Eli. And like, you know, like I had in my head canon like almost like pen pals. Like they ran each other back and forth. And it's like, everyone
talking about this in our chat. He was like, I really wish this had been able to happen, because I think they would have been really good pals and written to each other.
Nothing saying it couldn't happen.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was something that I had planned. Maybe I'll finish it. I'll send it to you or something.
So, Celts, do you ever see yourself? Celts, do you ever see yourself playing in the Camarilla?
No. Like I put like I said, I wrote a backstory that I could kind of see mirroring off of my own life. So like with Eli's thing is he was newly turned, but Eli faked his own death to financially stabilize his family that was struggling. And the second that Prince threatened the family that I was trying to keep, like, you never heard Eli talk about, oh, I've got family to visit or anything like that. Like, it was never going to be brought up. It was just part of my backstory. But the minute that the Prince was like, oh yeah, I've got pictures of your kids, I was like, nope, no matter what will I ever go in league with the Camarilla. Never. Not a single second. No.
Did that happen in game?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. It made sense for Landerhaven to enforce that point for a new grandpa, but it also kind of showed how it doesn't. It's dark, but it's nothing compared to Don Sebastian.
Agreed.
Like Don Sebastian just would have killed them. Landerhaven was harsh, but fair. That was
which,
the whole thing.
When that all came up, as I said, I get it completely. But Eli wasn't exposed to any of this.
Like, and I was kind of thinking about that too. I was like, did I go too far there? And I looked at Don Sebastian and I went back to Landerhaven. I'm like, nah, she's badass. And like, I never looked back.
It really was like, in a sense, like for portrayal, Landerhaven was more or less like the lesser of two evils of it's reasonable, practical, it's understandable, but it sucks. And then Don Sebastian's like, whoa, that's a whole different nightmare storm.
Yeah, I almost lost Dante that night because I almost thought about jumping off the ledge to try to save the Malkavian, and then at the same time turn around and try to stake Landerhaven herself.
Yeah, I wish Dante had lived. God damn it! Because that's another one. Like Eddie wanted to hang out with Dante. It's like this guy doesn't give a fuck. I love it.
that would have gotten Redcap blood hunted too because he had just vouched for you.
There was when
Redcap would have just been, I just got into town. I get a blood hunt.
Great.
God damn it!
When she picked up the sires on the balcony because she had already threatened the family. Like she showed us the pictures, showed Dante pictures of his family, me pictures of mine, and I honestly, like from Eli's standpoint, that's if I had a split second to interject in between where they lit the fuse, as a player, I was going to light the fuse on my own sire because at that point there's the protection for my family having eyes on them like superseded everything. And Eli, I took unbondable. So I knew from the get-go that there wouldn't have been any kind of weird ties to the sire. I mean, Eli liked his sire. They got along. But, that's what – I think I even said something to that effect that if I'd have known the trouble he was going to put me in, I would have lit the torch myself or something. I was going to actually jump in and light the fuse on my own sire for that. I mean, not that I had, like, ill will towards him, but just to get Landerhaven to kind of like, oh, shit, okay. Yeah, I'm thinking too much on these guys and they're down, but yeah, it worked out okay. Fun.
Throck, this question's related to a church. What would have happened? What would have happened if someone with lower humanity had gone through the doors of that church?
They would have rolled against their humanity and against a static difficulty of 10 and had taken a number of aggravated damage equal to the levels of failure.
Yeah.
And
the Sabat is just like, nope.
More importantly, it was so incredibly perfect that Alexander chose not to sacrifice one of the mortals, because had Alexander done that, I would have made Alexander take the stain test immediately, the humanity loss test immediately, because it had a direct and germane effect on what was going to happen during the game.
Fucking sweet.
I would have died if I walked through the door. Right? Nope. 5 humanity and not enough health to live through any aggravated damage.
Oh, it was great that Celine was just like, here, have this guy.
Humanity.
I
love
Dangerous to go alone. Eat this.
Yeah, if we leave anything up to Alexander that comes to like causing people harm, you're going to be there for 40 minutes with the pros and cons list. So
That is a good character. I was going to do it. Like Eddie and Alexander. That was well, we can't kill them. Doof, doof, doof.
I don't know if any of you are in a. I don't know if any of you are in a business environment, especially a creative business environment before. But do you know what a SWAT board is? I just literally see Alexander pulling up a SWAT board and giving the opportunities and weakness and strength.
Who would do that?
Put it down the middle of the pros and cons shit.
Pros and cons, strengths and opportunities.
It would be a calculation, and then it would probably be scrapped because he still couldn't decide at the end.
Alexander's the type that would probably grab a pro, move it to a con, and then 15 minutes later convince themselves to move it back to pro, and then like moving them back and forth between the two columns.
When it comes to causing harm, it's just like there's no decision being made. But as soon as it comes to like preventing harm, the decision became easier as the game went on.
Yeah, he's a perfect Camarilla though. Really, like when it comes to. Well, let's plan this out.
Path of humanity.
Jackie, I did ask Alexander specific question. Okay.
Yeah, I got it. So why did Alexander study into the convention of Thorns lore sheet?
Okay, so my original plan was to have him be more political and try to get up the ranks. And so I thought, okay, well, he's kind of a historian and he'd be interested in this. So it might be helpful to know previous politics of the Camarilla. And then, you know, I'm in school and the semester happened. So I personally didn't read up as much as I wanted to about it. And so it kind of went to the back of my mind and then it just never came up again. So it was kind of a fault of my own for not doing much with it, but it was originally supposed to just play into this idea that he wanted to surpass Elizabeth in terms of politics. And then I found out midway through the campaign that she doesn't give a shit about politics. So that goal kind of went, you know, out the window anyway.
I love how 90% of the Camarilla just turned anarch after the game ended.
Pretty much.
Well, they're claiming anarch.
That's
true.
the thing.
They're
I wanted to
claiming.
give all of us the cover to play both sides, but as soon as I started getting into power with the anarchs, I would not turn back to the Camarilla. I wrote a whole letter about my arguments to the Camarilla, why they needed us, and how we would help them. And I posted it in our chat. Maybe I'll get it out there somewhere.
Calvin has written some number of theses. Maybe he has a hammer and nail somewhere.
Literally.
Hey, you guys, I need to split, man.
All right.
It is 11 o'clock. This seems like a great time to say thank you.
Thank you to all you guys. Thank you to everyone who's watched. Dude, this was such a huge thing for me. Like, I enjoyed myself so immensely. It was incredible. So, but thank you, you guys. I love all you guys. Anytime I get a chance to do anything with any of you guys, man, I'm totally on board 100%. So good.
Join us in Berlin.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we're going to wrap it here because it is 11 o'clock and we did actually go 3 hours, which is insane.
We could talk forever.
I don't know how.
Yeah, we really
I
could.
remember post game.
Just like right now with the interrupting. I understand. I'm trying to close it out and y'all still keep talking. I love you all. But Jesus Christ. There will be more stories. These players
It's not
will
fair.
continue.
I had time now.
Oh my God. There will be more stories. These players will continue on. Many of them in different chronicles. Many of them I want to come back and play again. I've loved doing this with Soulbear RPG. I've loved doing this with Quinn. I've loved doing this with Zed. I've loved doing this with Death by Mage. You guys have made a dream of mine come true, and I can never thank you enough for that. We told 36 amazing stories over the course of 12 weeks and created awesome characters, and I am we'll be incredibly thankful for everyone in this Zoom chat and who couldn't make it tonight for the rest of forever. So thank you all so much, except for the heavy sigh. I don't know what that was about, but
Oh, I hit the leave game officially. On Project Flickerlight. And I was like,
press F. And on that, I just want to say thank you all. We're not going to do all the big announcements tonight. We're just going to say thank you. And keep watching.
Now Andrew just got off work. Look at that.
Of course. And we are going to go raid as we do. I can't imagine Castle Mac's going to be on much longer.
Let's go raid him anyway. Fuck it. Why
fuck
not?
it. You're right. Let's go raid him anyways. Okay.
Didn't they just raid us the other day at the end of a game?
Yeah. Yeah, so
They raided.
Return the awkward favor.
Yeah.
Devil luck.
Boink. All right. So with that, thank you all so much. And we'll be out in 5 seconds.
Thank you,
See
guys.
you soon. And remember, go check out Soulblade RPG, where they also do amazing role playing. We're not just here, we're there too. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
And boink.
There is